Hey friends, it's your girl Mia. This is Mia Horror Stories, and tonight's story I work at a drive-in theater. The movie on screen changes when no one is looking is told in darkness. The screen will stay black, so you can simply listen, imagine, and feel every moment without distraction. Trust me, the build-up matters, and the ending is where the real chill hides. So don't look away. And don't leave early. The movie changed while I was staring at the popcorn warmer. That was the first thing I could swear to. Not the time, not the exact line of dialogue, not whether the projector had hiccuped, or whether the wind had shoved the old screen enough to make the image warp. Just that I had been looking at the butter-stained glass of the warmer, watching the reflection of the long night home flicker behind me. And in that reflection, the man on screen was walking through a kitchen. When I turned around, he was standing in a motel room. Same actor, same raincoat, same blue-white lighting. Different place. Only for a second, maybe less. Then a Chevy Suburban honked from the concession lane. The fryer timer screamed behind me. And the image on the big screen was back in the kitchen, like nothing had happened. I almost let myself believe that was all it was. A reflection. A tired brain. An old movie print converted badly and streamed through equipment that should have retired before I graduated high school. That was the kind of explanation you reach for when you need your hands to keep working. My name is Eli Mercer. I was 27 that summer, male, and I worked nights at the Starlight Drive in outside Chambersburg, Pennsylvania, a little west of I-81, where the fields flatten out. And every road seems to smell faintly of cut grass, dust, and dairy farms after dark. The Starlight had one screen, a gravel lot with faded white parking humps, a snack bar with warped plywood floors, and a projection booth bolted above the concessions building like an afterthought. It was the sort of place families called classic when they were being kind and run down when they were. I liked it anyway. Mostly. The job was simple enough. Take tickets, sell popcorn, make sure nobody backed over the speaker posts we no longer used. Remind teenagers they couldn't bring in outside alcohol. Climb the metal stairs to the booth if the picture cut out or the server froze. Sweep up onion rings, sour gummy worms, and one full diaper somebody left under a minivan like an accusation against all human decency. On warm nights, when the movie had settled and the concession line died, I'd stand outside by the side door and listen to the lot. Car engines ticking as they cooled, kids giggling through cracked windows, the soft crush of tires over gravel, the faraway hum of trucks on the interstate, steady as surf. If the wind came from the south, you could smell the livestock barns. If it came from the north, it carried the fried sugar smell of funnel cake from our own kitchen and the sharp chemical bite of the sanitizer bucket. That night, June 14th, we were showing a double feature for Father's Day weekend. An older family comedy first, then The Long Night Home, a low-budget thriller from the early 2000s that people rented on DVD when they couldn't get anything better. It wasn't good, exactly, but it had a loyal following in the same way a scar has a loyal following. People remembered it because it had scared them when they were 13. We had maybe 60 cars in the lot, which was decent for us. Maya Reeves was on register when I noticed the change. Maya was 24, female, from Hagerstown, with a thick streak of copper dye running through the front of her dark hair. permanently unimpressed look of someone who had worked too many food service jobs and learned not to waste facial expressions. She was counting quarters out of the till with 2 fingers, chewing mint gum, and wearing the Starlight's red polo with the collar cut open because the air conditioner had been coughing lukewarm air since Memorial Day. "You burned the pretzels again?" she asked without looking up. "I didn't touch the pretzels." "Then something's burning. That's the hot dog roller. That thing is a war crime." I glanced through the concession window toward the screen. The image towered above the dark shapes of cars, glowing pale across windshields. Rain fell in the movie, not outside. The real sky was clear enough that I could see the black seam of South Mountain beyond the screen when the picture flashed bright. Kitchen scene. The actor in the raincoat moved from a refrigerator to a sink, exactly where he should have been. I looked back at the warmer. In the curved reflection, the screen bent and shrank, colors smeared by greasy glass. The actor was in the motel room again. Beige curtains, a bedspread with a red stripe, a lamp with no shade. I turned fast enough to bump my hip into the counter. Kitchen. Maya stopped counting. "What? Nothing. Eli, I thought the picture skipped." She leaned back and looked through the window. "Looks like a guy regretting a real estate choice. You ever see this movie?" "No, because I make good decisions." "It's supposed to be in a kitchen." "He is in a kitchen." "Yeah," she waited. I hated that. Maya had a way of leaving space in a conversation until you filled it with something dumb. "I saw something in the reflection," I said. "In the popcorn glass." "Forget it. Was it Jesus? Because if he's in there, ask if he can fix the soda machine." The Suburban honked again, 2 short blasts, and a man in a Phillies cap leaned out of the driver's window with the tired anger of a dad whose children had started eating each other in the back seat. I took his order, loaded nachos and 2 blue raspberry slushies, and made myself focus on the machine sounds. The pump gulping syrup, the register drawer slamming, the fan in the hood rattling like a playing card in bike spokes. Normal things. Normal, normal, normal. That was my private flaw, though I wouldn't have called it that then. I was good at explaining things away because I needed the world to be basically reasonable. I had spent the last year crawling out of a bad stretch after my dad's stroke and my breakup. And the night I fell asleep driving home from my warehouse job and kissed the guardrail on Route 30 hard enough to crack 2 ribs. Since then, sudden problems made my chest clamp down. Not fear, exactly. More like my body had learned that life could change in one ugly second and had decided to keep one hand near the alarm switch forever. So I made things ordinary whenever I could. Bad reflection, cheap equipment, exhaustion. There, solved. The Starlight's owner, Frank Bell, came in through the back door while I was wiping cheese sauce off the counter. Frank was 62, male, broad in the shoulders and soft in the belly, with silver hair combed straight back and forearms spotted from years of sun. He had bought the drive-in in the 90s with his wife, ran it with her until she died, and now treated the place like a stubborn old dog that kept biting him, but still slept at the foot of his bed. He smelled like cigarette smoke and lemon pledge, which meant he'd been cleaning the bathrooms himself again. "Projector stuttering," he said. I looked up too quickly. "You saw it, saw the frame drop. Don't make that face." "What face?" "The face where you think I'm about to spend money." Maya snorted. Frank tossed a ring of keys onto the counter. "Go up and check the server logs. If that media box freezes during Act 3, I'm refunding half the county. The booth sat above us, reached by a narrow outdoor staircase that trembled if you took it too fast. I didn't love going up there during shows, not because it was scary, because it was cramped and hot and full of equipment that beeped in ways I didn't understand, and because Frank believed every problem could be solved by unplugging one cable and threatening another. "I can go," Maya said. Frank pointed at me. "Eli knows the sequence." That was generous. I knew the laminated instruction sheet taped above the rack. "I'm on grill," I said. "Maya can put hot dogs in buns." "I went to college," Maya said, briefly. Frank gave her a look. "Then you're overqualified." I wiped my hands on a towel and took the keys. Outside, the night had settled fully over the lot. The family comedy had ended half an hour earlier, so the smallest kids were asleep or drooping in booster seats, their faces blue from the screen. A few teenagers sat in folding chairs between cars, pretending not to watch each other. Mosquitoes orbited the yellow security light above the concession door. Somewhere near the back row, someone's portable radio played the movie audio half a second out of sync, so every line arrived twice, once clear through the FM transmitters, then again faint and tinny across the gravel. I climbed the stairs. Halfway up, the wind moved. Not much, just enough to push a dry paper tray against the fence below. Scrape, scrape, scrape. Pause, scrape. The kind of tiny sound that gets bigger when you're above everyone else. At the top, I unlocked the booth and stepped into heat. The projection booth had no romance to it. People imagined reels spinning and light cutting through cigarette smoke. But ours was a metal rack, a digital projector the size of a dorm fridge, 2 monitors, a battery backup, a router, an FM transmitter, and a rolling chair with stuffing coming out of the seat. The room smelled of hot dust, old plastic, and the mousetraps Frank refused to admit weren't working. The server monitor showed the movie timeline crawling forward. No error message. No dropped file. No playlist skip. I checked the logs like the instruction sheet said. Green entries. Timestamps. Nothing red. The projector's fan roared steadily. Through the small square window, the screen filled half the world. Kitchen scene. The actor had found a photograph in a drawer. He held it near the sink. His lips moved, delayed by the faint echo of car speakers below. I looked at the second monitor, the one that mirrored the output. Motel room. He stood beside the bed, looking down at something on the floor. I froze with one hand on the mouse. The monitor flickered. Kitchen. I leaned closer until the heat from the rack pressed against my face. "What the hell?" I said. The booth door opened behind me and hit the wall with a flat metal bang. I flinched so hard my elbow clipped the rack. "Easy," said Jonah Price. Jonah was 19, male, a local kid from Fayetteville with sunburned cheeks, long limbs, and the nervous cheer of someone who apologized when other people bumped into him. Worked lot patrol on weekends, mostly waving cars into rows and telling people to turn off headlights. He had a flashlight in one hand and a trash grabber in the other, like a weapon he'd chosen under pressure. "Frank said you might need help," he said. "Also, a lady in row 3 says the radio's doing weird stuff." "What weird stuff?" She said she heard someone talking under the movie. "It's a thriller." "No, like under it, not actors." I looked past him through the booth window. Kitchen. Normal. On the monitor, kitchen 2. Jonah's smile weakened. "Is that bad?" Probably interference. I hated how fast I said it. From what? Phones, a trucker CB, somebody's Bluetooth speaker. I don't know. He nodded because he wanted that to be true. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Maya, you seeing this? I typed back with my thumb. ME. Seeing what 3 dots appeared, vanished, appeared again. Maya, screen looks normal from here, Maya. Reflection in nacho machine. Doesn't I stared at the words long enough that they stopped looking like English. Then, from below, the lot reacted. Not screaming. Nothing that dramatic. A ripple. A few car horns tapped. Someone laughed too loudly and then cut off. Folding chair legs scraped gravel. A little girl's voice carried up, thin and confused. Mom, why is it our car? I moved to the booth window. The screen still showed the kitchen, rain lashing the fake window behind the actor. But several people in the first rows had turned away from the screen. They were looking at their own windshields, their side mirrors, the glossy black hoods of their cars. Reflections. Jonah whispered, "What are they doing?" I didn't answer. I was watching a white minivan in row 2. Its windshield reflected the screen in a dim, warped rectangle. In that reflection, the motel room was back. And there was something else now. A shape in the motel mirror behind the actor, human-sized, standing very still. The actual screen showed only the kitchen. The reflected motel image held for 3 seconds. Then the screen flickered, and both versions matched again. Kitchen. A laugh came over the FM audio, but it belonged to the film, canned and badly mixed. Out in the lot, no one laughed with it. The booth phone rang. We had an old beige wall phone because Frank didn't trust cell service when the lot was full. Its ring was sharp and mechanical, too loud in the cramped room. I picked up. Frank didn't say hello. Do not stop the movie. What? People are getting spooked. If you stop it, they'll want refunds and start calling it haunted on Facebook before midnight. Frank, something's wrong with the output. The output is what's on the screen, not in reflections. A pause. Below us, the concession door opened and shut. I saw Maya step outside, wiping her hands on her apron, looking toward the lot. Frank's voice dropped. What did you say? The screen shows one thing, reflections show another. Jonah made a small sound behind me. On the screen, the actor turned. In the kitchen, he faced the dark hallway. In the booth monitor's glossy black bezel, his reflection faced us. Not exactly us. Down, toward the lot. I pulled the phone cord tighter without meaning to. Frank, come up here. I'm dealing with customers. Come up here. I said don't stop the movie. There it was, his fear, as plain as a receipt. Not ghosts, not danger, not some weird technical fault. Money, reputation, losing the place one bad weekend at a time. Frank had been holding the Starlight together with duct tape and nostalgia for years, and every choice he made passed through that narrow little doorway first. Can we afford the damage? The screen flashed white as lightning struck in the movie. For half a second, every windshield in the lot lit up. In those windshields, I saw the motel room. Not one reflection. All of them. Same room. Same actor. Same human shape behind him. Then darkness slid back over the cars, and the real screen showed the kitchen again. Jonah stepped away from the window. Eli, I saw it. What is that? I don't know. The honest answer landed between us harder than any lie would have. Maya called from below, her voice rising through the open stairwell. Eli, you need to come down. I looked out. She was near row 1 now, standing beside an old blue Honda Civic with its driver's window down. A woman inside was gesturing at her rearview mirror. Other customers were getting out of their cars, not panicking yet, but unsettled in that contagious way crowds get when nobody wants to be the first person to admit something is wrong. The movie audio kept playing through hundreds of little speakers and car radios. Rain, footsteps, a man breathing, then another sound underneath it, not from the booth speakers, from the lot. A faint tapping, spread out and uneven, like fingers drumming on glass one car at a time. Jonah and I looked at each other. The tapping stopped. On the server monitor, the timeline continued as if nothing in the world had changed. We had two choices then, though none of us said it that cleanly. Keep the movie running, pretend it was some projection glitch, and hope the audience settled down before they started filming. Or shut everything off, kill the picture, and risk turning a strange problem into an incident. Frank shouted from below, "Eli, leave it." Maya looked up at me from the gravel, her face pale in the screen light, and shook her head once. Not frantic, just no. My hand hovered over the projector controls. The movie kept playing. And in the dark glass of the monitor, where the reflection should have been too distorted to show detail, the motel room door slowly opened. I didn't stop the movie. That's the part I hate admitting, because it makes everything after sound like my fault. Maybe some of it was. Maybe if I had slapped the red stop button right then, while the motel room door was opening in the black glass of the booth monitor, the night would have turned into a weird customer service story instead of something people whispered about later in the produce aisle. But Frank was yelling from below. Maya was shaking her head. Jonah was breathing through his mouth beside me, and my hand just hung there over the controls like it belonged to somebody waiting for permission to touch a live wire. The motel door opened another inch in the reflection. On the actual screen, the actor in the raincoat stood in the kitchen, listening to movie rain batter a fake window. His face had that flat, bluish look older digital transfers get when the blacks are crushed and the skin tones go dead. Normal, cheap, predictable. In the monitor glass, he was not in the kitchen at all. He was in the motel room, and the door behind him opened without making a sound. Then Jonah leaned too close, and his shoulder bumped mine. The reflection broke. Kitchen again. "Sorry," he said too quickly. "Don't be sorry." My voice came out rough. "Go down and tell Maya to get people away from their cars." "Why?" "I don't know. Just do it." "That's not really an answer." "No, Jonah, it is." Swallowed and looked out the booth window, down at the gravel lot, where small groups of people were forming between bumpers and open doors. Most were still acting annoyed more than scared, which somehow made it worse. Fear has a shape. Annoyance is loose and stupid. It wanders around, talks over itself, gets in the way. A man in a Steelers hoodie had his phone out, filming his rearview mirror. Two teenagers near the third row were laughing as they aimed their flashlights at their windshield, daring each other to look away. The woman in the blue Honda Civic had both hands clamped on her steering wheel, like she was holding the car in place by force. Maya stood beside her, bent at the waist, listening. Then Maya looked up again and made a cutting motion across her throat. "Stop it." Frank saw her do it too. He was coming across the lot from the concession building, moving faster than I'd seen him move in months. His limp got worse when he hurried, the old knee injury turning his gait into an angry side-to-side thrust. He pointed at me through the booth window. "Leave it." That was Frank. Even under the screen light, even with half the lot watching reflections that didn't match the film. His first instinct was still to preserve the show. The Starlight had survived storms, streaming services, a pandemic shutdown, roof leaks, and a drunk man trying to drive over parking humps in a lifted Ram. It had survived because Frank treated every night like a test he could not fail. I understood that too well. I had my own test going. Keep steady. Don't overreact. Don't be the guy who panics because glass shows him something strange. After my accident on Route 30, I had become allergic to being the cause of a scene. Police lights, a tow truck, my dad crying without realizing he was doing it because the stroke had made his face slack on one side. Since then, I could handle emergencies only if nobody called them emergencies. Give me a list, a job, a broken thing to fix. Don't make me name the danger out loud. The booth phone rang again. I grabbed it. Frank's voice was low and furious. Do not touch that projector. Customers are getting out of their cars. Then tell them to get back in. Maya wants it stopped. Maya does not own this place. Frank, I checked the refunds drawer today, Eli. There is $86 in cash and a stack of rain checks. You stop this show over reflection, and by breakfast tomorrow, everybody from Chambersburg to Hagerstown is making haunted drive-in jokes. We'll have kids jumping the fence for TikToks all week. That sounded so small compared to what I had seen, and still it was real. Rent was real. Insurance was real. Reputation was real. A bad viral clip could bury a place like the Starlight faster than a fire. I saw a door open, I said, on the screen. No, then it isn't part of the output. Frank, that's not how video works. Exactly. He hung up. I stood there holding the receiver until the dial tone buzzed in my ear. Jonah hadn't moved. Go, I told him. He nodded, but he didn't go fast. He backed out like the equipment might lunge at him, then turned and rattled down the stairs. The metal steps shook with each footfall. I looked at the server. The movie had 29 minutes left. 29 minutes. That became the time limit without anyone announcing it. 29 minutes before the feature ended, and the lot lights came up automatically. 29 minutes before people started their cars and tried to leave through one narrow exit onto a dark 2-lane road. 29 minutes to figure out whether this was a projector issue, a prank, interference, or something else, with enough moving parts to make 60 cars all see the wrong movie in every reflective surface at once. I opened the booth cabinet and found the laminated sheet Frank had made for projection problems. If image FREZS, restart media server. If audio drops, check FM transmitter channel 88.7. If screen goes black, verify projector lamp status. Do not change playlist during show unless authorized. Nothing about reflections. I checked the mirror output setting on the server. Normal. I checked the HDMI chain. Normal. I checked the old backup monitor connected to the rack. It showed the kitchen. The main booth monitor showed the kitchen too. Only the glossy black border, dark enough to act like a mirror, gave me that stretched, dim motel room when I tilted my head just right. The door in that motel room was open now. No figure behind it, just a dark rectangle. From below, Maya shouted, "Eli." I stepped to the window. She was waving both arms. Jonah stood near her with his flashlight up. Frank was arguing with a man in a fishing vest who had gotten out of a silver pickup and was pointing toward the back rows. Then I heard the first real scream. Not movie audio, not kids playing. A woman. The sound came from somewhere near row 5, back toward the left side, where the grass met the gravel, and the old playground sat roped off beyond the split rail fence. It cut through the drive in cleanly. Engines stopped revving. Conversations snapped shut. I was moving before I decided to move. Down the stairs, one hand sliding along the rail slick with evening damp. My right knee complained when I hit the gravel too hard, a leftover ache from the accident that showed up when the weather changed or I got stupid. The air outside smelled like popcorn oil, exhaust, and the sweet moldy rot from the drainage ditch beyond the fence. Maya met me near the first row. "Little boy's missing," she said. "What?" "Blue Civic." The mom looked in her rear view and saw something in the back seat that wasn't there when she turned around. She freaked, got out, and now her kid's gone. "How old?" "6, maybe 7. Name's Owen." The woman from the Civic stumbled toward us. She was 36, female, with blonde hair pulled into a messy knot and a sweatshirt that said Gettysburg Soccer in cracked white letters. Her face had gone shiny with sweat. She clutched a phone in one hand, but the screen was black. "My son," she said. My son was in the back. He was right there. Maya put a hand near her elbow, but didn't touch without permission. "Karen, this is Eli. He works here too." Karen Whitcomb, 36, female, mother of the missing boy, looked at me with the terrible expectation people get when they think an employee must secretly control the whole world. "The door's locked," she said. "I had the child lock on. He couldn't just get out." "Was anyone with him?" "My daughter's asleep. She didn't see." Karen turned toward the Civic. A little girl, maybe 4, lay curled in the front passenger seat under a pink blanket, crying softly without lifting her head. I looked in the mirror because he said there was a man behind us. I thought he meant outside. I looked back and he was there, but not there, like in the mirror. Then I turned around and Owen was gone. Frank arrived, breathing hard. "Kids wander," Karen rounded on him. "He does not wander. I'm not saying he has asthma. He gets scared in the dark, and he knows not to leave the car." The word asthma changed the air around us. Maya's eyes moved to mine. Time limit, revised. Not 29 minutes until the movie ended. Now it was however long a scared 6-year-old with asthma could run around a dark drive-in, maybe hiding, maybe locked somewhere, maybe near the ditch or the road, or under a car whose driver might decide to leave. "We need lights," I said. Frank's jaw tightened. "Lot lights come up after the show. Turn them on manually. That'll wash out the screen and people will start." "Frank," he looked at Karen, then away. That small hesitation cost him. Karen saw it. "You care about the movie," she said. "No, ma'am, I care about keeping people calm." "Then find my kid." Maya stepped in, voice low and even. "We're going to find him." Eli, booth key. Frank lights Jonah. Start row by row and tell people not to move their cars. Nobody leaves. "Can we legally stop them?" Jonah asked. "No," Maya said, "so ask nicely first." That was Maya's strength. Not bravery in a movie sense, structure. When everyone else began flailing, she put rails under the moment. I should have been grateful. Mostly, I felt ashamed that she had taken command while I was still fighting the urge to explain the whole thing into something manageable. Frank muttered, "Police." Karen lifted her dead phone. I tried. "It won't call." "Mine too," Maya said. "No service." "We always lose signal when the lot's full," Frank said too fast. "Landline," I said, the beige phone in the booth. Frank nodded. "I'll call from concessions." Booth phones closer. Concessions has the emergency list. He started toward the building. His limp dragged through the gravel. Maya watched him go, then leaned close to me. He's lying about something. About what? I don't know yet. That sentence sat badly in my stomach. The movie kept playing above us. The actor's voice came through 100 car speakers, saying, "There's nobody here," with cheap dramatic weight. A man near row 2 shouted, "Hey, are we supposed to stay or what?" Maya turned. "Everyone please stay by your cars. We have a missing child. Do not move your vehicles. Check under and around your cars, but don't drive." That spread faster than fear. Missing child. The phrase hopped from window to window, softened by distance, distorted by concern. People who had been filming lowered their phones. Parents opened doors. Flashlights blinked on. The starlight changed shape. It stopped being an audience and became 60 small search parties, all disorganized, all stepping into each other's beams. Gravel crunched everywhere. Car doors dinged. Someone's toddler started wailing because everyone else was upset. The screen flickered over us, turning faces blue, then gray, then blue again. Jonah jogged past with his flashlight. "I'll take the back rows." "Stay away from the road," I said. "Yeah, okay." He didn't sound okay. Maya and I went to the Civic. Karen hovered behind us, whispering Owen's name like saying it enough times might pull him out from under the seat. The rear door was open now. Inside, the back seat had a booster on the passenger side, a pile of snack wrappers, one red sneaker, and a small plastic dinosaur wedged near the floor mat. The air smelled like crayons, spilled soda, and warm upholstery. "One shoe," Maya said. Karen made a small hurt sound. I crouched and looked under the car. Gravel, a crushed popcorn bucket. No kid. Could he have climbed into the trunk? I asked. "It's a Civic, not a magic act," Maya said, but she checked anyway, popping the trunk from the driver's side. Empty except for jumper cables, a folded stroller, and a case of bottled water. The rearview mirror caught my attention. It reflected the screen behind us. Not the kitchen. Not now. Motel room. The open door. And low in the corner of the reflection, a child's hand pressed against the inside of a closet door. I jerked upright and slammed my head against the door frame. Pain flashed white across my vision. "Eli," Maya grabbed my shoulder. I blinked hard. The rearview mirror reflected the actual lot now. People with flashlights, the screen, Karen's pale face. "What?" Maya asked. I saw a closet. In the mirror, and a hand. Karen heard. She lunged toward the car, staring into the mirror. "Owen." "No, wait." She shoved past me and climbed halfway into the back seat, reaching for nothing. Her knee landed on the red sneaker. "Owen." The little girl in the front seat started crying louder. Maya pulled Karen back gently but firmly. "He's not in there. You don't know that. He's not in the car. You said you saw him." "I saw something," I said. "Not him. I don't know." Karen stared at me with such fury that I almost preferred panic. "Then stop saying things." She was right. Maya gave me one quick look, careful. Frank's voice crackled over the old PA speakers mounted on the concession roof. They were usually for raffle numbers and birthday shout-outs, and they squealed before every announcement. "Attention, folks. We have a young boy separated from his family. His name is Owen. He is 6 years old, wearing a green dinosaur t-shirt and one red sneaker. Please remain parked and check your immediate area. Staff are contacting authorities." Static popped. Then another sound slipped through the speakers. A child coughing. 3 dry coughs. The whole lot seemed to hear it at once. Karen screamed, "That's him." The PA went dead. Maya grabbed my arm. Where's the PA mic? Concession office. We ran, not gracefully. My knee ached, and Maya nearly slipped where spilled soda had turned dust into syrup near the service window. Inside the concession stand, the kitchen lights buzzed overhead. The popcorn machine churned on with obscene cheer, kernels rattling in the kettle. The fryer oil ticked. The hot dog roller turned its tired little corpses in slow circles. Frank stood in the office doorway with the phone pressed to his ear. His face was wrong, not scared like Karen, not confused like Jonah. Caught. Did you call 911? Maya asked. Frank covered the receiver. Line S dead. Then who are you talking to? He looked down at the phone like it had betrayed him. No dial tone came from it. No voice. Just the faint, open hum of a dead line. Maya stepped past him into the office. The PA microphone sat on the desk beside the emergency binder. Its red transmit button was taped down with a strip of silver duct tape. Freshly torn, Maya looked at Frank. Did you do that? No. Who's been in here? No one. The popcorn kettle gave a hard metallic pop behind us, and I flinched. Frank saw it. His expression softened for half a second, then tightened again. Listen to me. Years ago, we had kids sneak into the booth and splice stuff into trailers. Not actual film, digital junk. They made it look like people's cars were on screen. Scared the hell out of a birthday party. This could be the same kind of thing. When, I asked, before your time, why didn't you say that? Because I don't know that it matters. A kid is missing. I know that. No, Frank, I don't think you do. His face reddened. I have kept children safe in this lot since before you were born. Then help us. That landed. He looked away first. Maya ripped the tape off the microphone. Somebody used this. Could be a customer screwing around, Frank said. Could be interference. Interference doesn't tape down a button. From outside came shouting. Jonah burst through the side door so hard it bounced off the wall. He was breathing fast, one hand braced against the soda machine. Back gate's open, he said. Frank's head snapped up. No, it is. It is. Chains cut. The back gate was beyond the last row, where the gravel thinned into weeds, and the old maintenance path led toward a drainage culvert. And then, eventually, the service road behind the property. It was supposed to be padlocked. Frank checked it every night because teenagers used to sneak in that way with lawn chairs and beer. Maya said, Did anyone see Owen go that direction? Jonah shook his head. I found this by the fence. He held up something small. A second red sneaker. Karen came in behind him, saw it, and made a sound I still hear sometimes when I'm half asleep. Not a scream. A mother trying not to break apart because breaking would waste time. The movie outside boomed suddenly through the FM speakers, louder than before, as if someone had raised the gain. The actor shouted a line, and the lot answered with startled voices. Then the screen went black. For one clean second, every car, every face, every strip of gravel vanished. The concession lights stayed on. The projector fan kept roaring overhead. The screen lit again, not with the kitchen, with the motel room. The whole lot saw it now, not just reflections. The beige curtains, the stripped bed, the open closet door. And from the PA speakers, before any of us could move, Owen's coughing came again. Closer this time. Then a small voice said, Mom. Karen shoved past Jonah toward the dark lot. Maya grabbed for her and missed. Frank reached for the breaker panel. I caught his wrist. If you kill the lights now, I said, we lose where he is. We can't leave that playing. But the image on the screen shifted slightly. the motel room camera drifting toward the open closet. In the bottom left corner of the frame, half hidden by shadow, was a green dinosaur t-shirt. Maya looked at me, then toward the booth stairs, then out toward the open back gate. We had to choose again. The projection booth might tell us who was feeding that image. The back gate might lead to Owen. And the movie had just made it clear, in the cruelest possible way, that someone wanted us to split up. Maya made the call before I could. "Jonah, you stay with Karen and keep people away from the exit," she said. "Frank, you and Eli go to the booth. I'm checking the back gate." "No," I said. She looked at me. "No, you don't go alone. Then pick, booth or gate." That was the awful math of it. The projection booth was above the concession stand, looking over the whole lot. The back gate was 200 yards away, past row 6, past the dead playground and the line of scrub trees where the property dropped toward the drainage culvert. The main entrance was at the opposite end, a single gravel lane feeding out to Lincoln Way West. And if one spooked driver decided to bolt, they could hit someone searching between cars. The Starlight had always felt small to me. One screen, one snack bar, one exit. That night, it stretched out like a map drawn by someone cruel. Frank yanked his wrist free from my hand. "I'm going to the booth." "You're not touching anything alone," Maya said. "I own the equipment." And somebody used your office to play a missing kid's voice over the PA. So forgive me if ownership isn't enough right now. Frank's mouth opened, closed. Karen stood behind Jonah, holding Owen's red sneaker against her chest. Her little daughter was still in the Civic, crying in hiccups, while another mother from row 1 sat with her. The motel room on the screen glowed over all of us, making every windshield look like a dark eye. The image had frozen, not paused exactly. The curtains fluttered from a fan we couldn't hear. The open closet door stayed black. The strip of green dinosaur shirt remained in the bottom corner, half visible. Owen's shirt, or something made to look like it. I wanted very badly for it to be fake. "Fine," Maya said. "Eli and I go to the booth first. Frank, you get the breaker keys and keep the lot lights ready. Jonah, nobody leaves. If a car starts, stand clear, don't play hero. Just get the plate." Jonah nodded too many times. "Yeah, okay, plates." Karen grabbed my sleeve as I turned. Her grip was hard and damp. "If that's him," she said, pointing at the screen without looking at it, "you get him off there." "I'll try." "No, don't try, do it." I didn't have an answer that would help her. Maya and I ran toward the concession building. Gravel slid under my shoes. My right knee had started pulsing from the earlier sprint, a deep ache under the kneecap, and every step up the metal booth stairs sent a little spark into my thigh. Behind us, Jonah's voice moved from car to car, high and shaking but loud enough. "Please stay parked. Missing child. Keep headlights off unless staff tells you. Please stay parked." At the top of the stairs, the booth door was open. I stopped so abruptly Maya bumped into me. "What?" I closed it. The booth was hotter than before. The projector fan roared. The server rack blinked green and amber. On the main monitor, the kitchen scene was back, playing normally, like the motel room had never existed. The actor in the raincoat was kneeling by a broken cabinet, doing the movie's original plot with stubborn obedience. But the screen outside still showed the motel room. Maya saw it through the booth window and whispered, "That's impossible. It's 2 outputs." What does that mean? It means what we're seeing on the monitor is what's being sent to the projector, or somebody bypassed it. I sounded more confident than I felt. My experience came from Frank's laminated sheet and 3 years of unplugging cables while sweating through my polo. We tried the simplest thing first. Attempt 1. Stop the feed. I hit pause. The monitor paused on the kitchen. Outside, the motel room kept moving. A small collective moan rose from the lot as the image drifted closer to the closet. Maya leaned over the rack, tracing cables with her fingers. Which one sends to the projector? HDMI out from the server to the scaler, scaler to projector. That one. I think, you think, Maya, I sell nachos. She pulled the cable. The booth monitor went black. The projector did not. The motel room stayed on the screen, now filling the whole night with its stained beige walls. Put it back, I said. Why? If there's a second feed, maybe the server still logs something. If we kill everything, we're blind. She shoved the cable back in. The monitor flickered, then came up with the kitchen scene, still paused. Outside, motel room, partial failure. New fact, whatever was on the big screen was not coming through the normal server path anymore. Maya crouched behind the rack. There's another cable. Where? Back of the projector. Runs along the wall. I followed her hand. A black cable, thinner than the main HDMI, had been zip-tied to the conduit in a way that looked tidy if you weren't looking hard. It disappeared into a drilled hole near the floor, one I had always assumed was for old wiring. Has that always been there? She asked. I don't know. Eli, I don't know. My voice cracked on the second one. I hated it. Hated that a cable could make me feel stupid and small and responsible. Maya stood. Hair had come loose around her face, copper streak stuck to her cheek with sweat. Where does the hole go? Down into the ceiling over concessions, maybe the office. Then somebody installed it. Maybe Frank did. Then Frank tells us now. She reached for the booth phone. Dead. Just a hollow click. From outside came shouting near the back rows. Not one voice. Several. Maya and I looked through the window. At the far end of the lot, beyond row 6, flashlight beams jerked wildly near the playground fence. Jonah had left the front rows and was running toward them despite instructions. Karen was following, stumbling in one sneaker and one bare foot because she had kicked off her shoe without realizing it. Maya, I said. She was already moving, down the stairs again. My knee nearly buckled on the last step, and I caught the rail hard enough to scrape skin off my palm. The pain helped, weirdly. It gave me something clean and honest to focus on. We crossed the lot diagonally, from the concession building past row 3 toward the left rear corner. Cars hemmed us in on both sides. People stood in doorways with phones raised, but most screens showed no bars, no uploads, nothing but their own frightened faces reflected back. The movie audio had gone strange too. The FM broadcast carried the original Thriller's dialogue, still from the kitchen scene, while the PA speakers hummed faintly under it, as if waiting. The back of the starlight was darker. The screen light didn't reach well past row 6. There, the gravel faded into weeds and mud around the playground, which had been closed since a kid broke his wrist on the rusted slide 2 summers earlier. Yellow caution tape hung in old loops from the monkey bars. Beyond that was the split rail fence, the service gate, and the narrow maintenance path leading downhill through sumac and trash trees toward the drainage culvert. Jonah stood at the gate, flashlight shaking. The chain lay cut in the weeds. Karen was on her knees beside the fence, calling into the dark. Owen, baby, answer me. Frank arrived behind us with a ring of keys and a crowbar I'd never seen before. He was breathing in wet, ragged pulls. "What happened?" Maya asked. Jonah pointed. On the maintenance path, maybe 30 feet beyond the gate, something small moved in the brush. Green, dinosaur green. Maya took Jonah's flashlight and swept the beam over it. A t-shirt hung from a branch, not on a person, just snagged there, stretched by the wind. Karen made a sound like she'd been punched and crawled forward. "Wait," Maya said, grabbing her. "Wait, it's his shirt." "I know, let me check." Attempt 2, search the path. Maya went first through the gate, flashlight low. I followed, then Frank, then Jonah despite my telling him to stay back. Karen tried to come too, but 2 customers held her gently at the fence while she cursed at all of us. The maintenance path sloped behind the drive-in in a shallow S-curve. To the right, the rear of the screen rose like a black wall against the sky. To the left, scrub trees crowded the drainage ditch. Straight ahead, maybe 70 yards down, the culvert ran under the service road and came out near a cow pasture. Every step changed the sound. The lot noise dulled behind us. The movie became a tinny echo bouncing off parked cars. Crickets took over. Leaves brushed our sleeves. The ground was soft from a storm earlier in the week, and our shoes made sucking sounds in the mud. Maya lifted the shirt off the branch. It was a child's green dinosaur shirt, but the inside collar had no name tag. Karen had said Owens had one because he lost things at school. "This might not be his," Maya said. Frank wiped his face. "Could be planted." "By who?" He didn't answer. The flashlight beam caught something pale near the mud, a hand. Jonah yelped and stumbled backward into me, knocking my bad knee sideways. Pain shot up my leg. I grabbed his shoulder and almost dragged us both down. "Jesus, sorry," he gasped. Maya froze the beam on the shape. For 1 second, it was a child's hand reaching from under the weeds. Then the wind shifted the grass, and the fingers separated into 5 white plastic forks stuck in a wad of napkins. Nobody laughed. That was the misdirection. It should have released pressure, but it didn't. It proved our brains were ready to turn trash into bodies. Maya crouched by the mud. Tracks. Frank bent with effort. Kids. Maybe. There were footprints, but the ground had been chewed up by more than one person. Small sneaker marks, adult boot marks, a deep rectangular print like an equipment case had been set down. A drag line where something had been pulled toward the culvert. "Could Owen have walked this?" Jonah asked. "With one shoe," I said. "Maybe, but why take off his shirt?" Maya looked back toward the gate. He didn't. The PA speakers crackled behind us, faint but clear enough. Owen coughed again, and a woman's voice, low and close to the microphone, whispered, "Wrong way." All of us turned. The words had come from the drive-in, not the culvert, from behind us. Karen screamed at the fence. "Who said that? Who said that?" The screen image brightened over the lot. The motel room was still there, but now the camera had moved through the closet door into darkness. Not supernatural darkness. Lens darkness. Bad camera. Low light. A flashlight beam shook across old carpet. For a second, I saw a strip of wall with peeling paint and a number stenciled in black. B3. Frank whispered something. Maya heard it. "What?" He shook his head. "What is B3? "Nothing, Frank. It's one of the old storage rooms." My head turned toward him slowly. "What storage rooms?" He wouldn't look at me. Maya stood so fast the flashlight beam jumped into the trees. "Frank, the original owners built rooms under the screen," he said. "Back in the 70s. Maintenance, equipment, junk storage. Most drive-ins had weird little add-ons. Under the screen, behind it, concrete, half buried. I looked toward the enormous screen. From the front, it was a flat white rectangle on steel legs. From behind, there was space under the structure, hidden by corrugated panels, weeds, and stacked pallets I had walked past 100 times without thinking. "You said the cable in the booth might go down to concessions," I said. Frank's face tightened. Maya said, "Where does it actually go?" "I don't know. You knew about B3. I haven't opened those rooms in years." "Why?" "Because they're condemned." The word moved through us like a physical draft. Condemned meant rot, bad stairs, mold, rusted rebar, collapse. Places a 6-year-old should not be, especially in the dark, especially if someone had taken him there. Karen heard enough from the fence. "Where is he?" Maya didn't answer her yet. She turned on Frank. "Keys. I don't have them." "Frank, I lost them." "You lost keys to condemned rooms under your screen. They were sealed." "With what?" "Padlocks. Sheet metal. I don't know. Years ago." Jonah's flashlight had drifted to the mud again. "Guys," he pointed to the drag mark. It didn't lead toward the culvert after all. We had been reading it downhill because the path pulled our eyes that way. But under the overlapping footprints, the line angled back toward the rear of the screen, disappearing through weeds beside the fence. Partial failure. New fact. The shirt and tracks had pulled us toward the culvert, but the likely route bent back toward the screen. Someone had used the open gate as bait. Maya swore softly. Everyone back. We hurried uphill. By then, the audience had begun to fracture. Some people wanted to help. Some wanted out. A pickup in row 4 had its engine running, headlights blazing despite Jonah shouting for them to shut off. The beams lit the backs of people's legs and threw long, panicked shadows across the gravel. "Turn those off," Maya yelled. The driver leaned out. "My wife's having a panic attack. I'm leaving. There's a missing child." "Then don't stand in the road." He put the truck in gear. For one terrible second, I saw how this could get worse in the most ordinary way possible. A frightened man, a heavy truck, bad sightlines, people moving between cars, a child somewhere unseen. I stepped in front of the pickup before I thought it through. The truck rolled an inch. Maya shouted my name. My injured knee trembled. The headlights pinned me so hard I couldn't see the driver, only the bright shape of the grill and dust floating in the beams. "Move," he yelled. "No cars move," I said. My voice didn't carry the way I wanted. Frank came up beside me with the crowbar hanging from one hand. "Shut it off, Dale." The driver hesitated. "Frank, shut it off." The engine stopped. That was when I understood Frank had history with half the county. Not all of it good, maybe, but enough to matter. Maya grabbed my arm and pulled me out of the headlights. "Don't ever do that again." I didn't plan it. That's not comforting. We moved behind the screen. The rear side of the starlight was a different world. Up front, the screen looked smooth and white. Behind it, steel supports crossed in rusting diagonals. Corrugated metal panels formed a low service wall at the base, tagged with old spray paint and patched in places with plywood. Weeds grew waist-high along the foundation. The projector beam shot from the booth over the lot and struck the front of the screen. But back here, the light leaked through seams, thin and ghostly. Frank led us to a section, partly hidden behind stacked pallets, and a blue tarp stiff with age. "There," he said. Maya pulled the tarp aside. A metal door sat recessed into concrete beneath the screen structure. Its paint had blistered. A small stenciled label, nearly gone, read, B3, the padlock was new. Not shiny new, but not years old either. No rust, no dust crusted in the shackle. Silver scratches showed around the hasp. Maya looked at Frank. He shook his head. Not mine. From inside the door came a faint sound, not coughing. A soft electronic chirp, like a phone recording starting. Then Owen's voice, muffled through metal, said, "Mom." Karen screamed from the other side of the screen, where Jonah and 2 customers were trying to keep her back. Maya raised the flashlight. I saw the duct tape then, wrapped around the doorframe at knee height. A wire ran from it into the weeds. "Don't touch the door," I said. Everyone stopped. Frank lowered the crowbar slowly. "What is it?" "I don't know." Maya crouched without touching anything. The wire was black thin and taped along the concrete toward the steel supports. Not enough to be obvious unless you were already afraid of wires. "It could be an alarm," she said. "Or camera trigger," I said. "Or nothing. Or not nothing." My mouth tasted like pennies. The accident memory pushed up hard. Headlights, guardrail. The moment after impact, when I couldn't breathe and thought moving would make something inside me tear open. I had spent a year training myself not to freeze. Now I froze anyway. The PA speakers crackled again across the lot. The woman's voice returned, calm and close. 10 minutes. On the big screen, the motel room image changed. A handheld camera panned across a concrete floor, past a rusted shelving unit, past a child's red sneaker placed neatly beside a drain. Then the feed jumped to black. The projector lamp snapped off. The lot fell into darkness, except for headlights, phone screens, and the sick yellow glow from the concession stand. A chorus of panicked voices rose. Then, from the screen supports above us, something heavy clanked. The B3 door lock clicked from the inside. Maya whispered, "Everybody back." Too late. Behind us, the pickup driver who had wanted to leave slammed his truck into reverse in panic. Tires spun on gravel. People shouted. The truck's rear bumper struck the wooden barrier near the main lane with a crack loud enough to make the whole lot flinch. The only open exit was now partially blocked. At the same moment, the concession building lights went out. The starlight went black from end to end. No screen, no lot lights, no office phone, no easy exit. And behind the B3 door, in the dark under the screen, Owen started coughing for real. The dark made the drive enormous. That was the first thing I noticed after the concession lights died. Not the screaming, not the pickup truck grinding against the wooden barrier by the exit. Not even Owen coughing behind the metal door under the screen. The dark stretched everything. The lot became a field of shapes and voices. Cars sat in rows like abandoned machinery. Phone flashlights bobbed between them, weak little cones of white light that showed ankles, bumpers, hands, faces cut in half by fear. Somewhere near the front, a child sobbed into someone's shirt. Someone else kept saying, "Start the cars, start the cars." And another voice yelled back, "Don't move, there are people in the lane." Behind the screen, under the steel supports, Maya and I stood in front of B3 with Frank, all of us breathing hard. Inside the room, Owen coughed again. Not through the PA, not tinny, close. A wet, scraping cough that hit the metal door and came back at us. Karen heard it from the other side of the screen and screamed his name. "Owen," the boy coughed twice more. Then a small, thin voice. "Mom." Frank lifted the crowbar. Maya grabbed his sleeve. "The wire. I'm not waiting. You hit that door and trigger whatever it's attached to. You might hurt him." "What do you want me to do?" asked nicely. The wire ran from the doorframe into the weeds, black against black, until Jonah's flashlight beam caught little strips of silver tape holding it to the concrete. My scraped palm stung. My knee throbbed. My head hurt where I'd slammed it into the Civic earlier. Everything in me wanted to smash the lock and be done with the thinking. But thinking was all we had. Light, I said. Jonah had followed Karen around the side of the screen, despite every instruction we'd given him. His face appeared in the glow, pale and damp, hair stuck to his forehead. He held the flashlight like it weighed 10 pounds. Keep it on the wire, I told him, my hands shaking. Use both. He did. Maya crouched close to the door, not touching it. It's taped, not wired into the lock, see? It goes under the hasp, but not through it. Frank leaned over her shoulder. Camera, maybe a contact sensor. Meaning what? Meaning if the door opens, somebody knows. Somebody already knows, Frank said. From inside B3 came a metallic scrape. A small body shifting against concrete. Owen, Maya called, come in a way I knew cost her. My name's Maya. We're outside the door. Don't touch anything, okay? A pause. I can't see. I know. Are you hurt? My chest hurts. Karen tried to shove past Jonah. Let me in there. Jonah blocked her with his body, apologizing the whole time. Ma'am, please, please. I'm sorry. They're getting him, please. I looked back toward the lot. The pickup had blocked half the exit lane, its rear bumper wedged into the wooden barrier and a post. Dale, the driver, was out now, yelling at people to help push. That created a new problem. Headlights were snapping on as drivers panicked, turning the search area into a strobing mess of glare and shadow. The main lot lights were dead. The concession stand was dead. The projection booth was a black square above us, but the FM audio still hissed from some car radios. The movie's original soundtrack, faint and wrong. Rain, footsteps, a door creaking. Frank, I said, where's the generator? What? You had a generator during the storm last year. In the shed by the playground. Can it power the lot lights? Number concessions, office, maybe the PA. Can it power the landline? If the line itself isn't cut, Maya looked up. We need bolt cutters. In the shed too, Frank said, keys. Frank held up the ring. The PA speakers cracked overhead. Everyone froze. The speakers shouldn't have had power. A breath came through them, close to a microphone. Then the woman's voice again, low and smooth. Don't open B3. Karen sobbed once. The voice continued. He has less time than you think. Maya stood slowly. Who is that? Frank's face had gone gray in Jonah's flashlight beam. Frank, I said. He didn't answer. Frank. His mouth worked. No sound. The PA popped off. From the lot, someone shouted, there, by the snack bar. A flashlight beam swung wildly across the concession building. For half a second, I saw a person moving along the side wall near the stairs to the booth. Dark hoodie, baseball cap, something slung over one shoulder. Then they disappeared around the corner. Maya saw them too. That's them, she said. It should have been a clean choice. Stay with Owen or chase the person controlling the system. But the night had been built to keep making us choose wrong. Frank pushed the crowbar into my hands. Get the kid. Then he turned and ran, not toward B3, toward the booth stairs. Frank, Maya shouted. He didn't stop. His limp made him slower, but fear drove him hard. He crossed behind the screen, cut through the gap toward the concession building, and vanished into the dark. Maya cursed. Eli lock. I wedged the crowbar under the padlock hasp. The wire tugged. Stop, Maya snapped. I stopped. She followed the wire with her fingers, then pinched the tape loose at the concrete instead of the door. One strip, two, The wire slackened. Inside, Owen coughed again, longer this time, ending in a high wheeze. "Hurry," Karen said. It wasn't a scream anymore. It was worse, thin and empty. Maya held the wire away from the door. Now I pulled. The crowbar slipped and punched into my thigh. Pain bloomed hot and stupid. "Again," Maya said. I set the hook deeper under the hasp, planted my good foot, and leaned with everything I had. My bad knee trembled. My scraped palm slid on the metal. The padlock bit into the hasp, stubborn, almost casual. "Come on," I said. It didn't move. Jonah stepped in. "Let me. No, I'm heavier." He wasn't much heavier, but he had 2 good legs. I gave him the crowbar. He wedged it in, braced 1 foot against the concrete, and hauled. The hasp screamed, a thin metal shriek that ran up the screen supports. Jonah's face twisted. "It's going." Maya kept the wire pulled aside. I grabbed the crowbar with him. Together we leaned. The hasp tore free. Jonah fell backward into the weeds. I slammed my shoulder into the door. The padlock and hasp clanged against the concrete, still joined together like a useless bracelet. The door opened 3 inches. A smell pushed out. Wet concrete, mildew, old electrical insulation, human sweat, and gasoline. "Back," Maya said, too late to back all the way. I pulled the door open another foot, slow, expecting the wire to snap taut or something to spark. Nothing did. Jonah's flashlight beam slid into the room. B3 was not large, maybe 12 feet by 16. Low ceiling, concrete walls, rusted shelves along one side, a floor drained near the center, old speaker posts stacked in a corner, a blue plastic tarp hanging from the ceiling on binder clips, making a crude little partition. Owen sat behind the tarp, tied to an old folding chair with silver duct tape around his wrists and ankles. His green dinosaur shirt was gone. He wore a white undershirt and shorts. 1 foot was bare. The other had no shoe. His face was streaked with dirt and tears, and every breath made his shoulders climb. Beside him, on a shelf, a phone was propped against a paint can, recording. A small Bluetooth speaker sat under the chair. That was the cough on the PA. Some of it anyway, recordings, delays, cruel little tricks made from ordinary junk. Karen shoved past everyone. "Maya, wait." But she was already inside, ducking under the low frame, slipping on the damp floor as she reached him. There are moments when love is reckless and completely understandable. Maya lunged after her. "Don't touch the chair." Karen dropped to her knees in front of Owen and started tearing at the tape. Owen wheezed, "Mommy, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here." Maya grabbed the phone off the shelf and threw it toward me. I caught it against my chest. The screen was cracked but active. A video call was open, not recording, live. For a second, I saw a black rectangle, then the camera adjusted. A face filled the screen. Male, late 20s or early 30s, pale stubble, baseball cap pulled low, a crooked front tooth. He smiled. "Hi, Eli." I nearly dropped the phone. Maya looked back. "What?" the man on the screen said. "Tell Frank I found the old rooms." His voice matched the PA voice only in rhythm. The woman's voice had been processed, pitched, distorted. This was the person underneath it. "Who are you?" I asked. He laughed softly. "Ask Frank about 2011. Behind me, Jonah said, "Guys." I turned. The smell of gasoline was stronger. Near the door, half hidden behind a stack of old speaker posts, a red plastic fuel can lay on its side. A dark slick spread from it across the concrete toward an orange extension cord. The cord ran into a cheap power strip mounted above the drain, feeding the Bluetooth speaker, another phone, a little wireless camera clipped to a shelf, and a battered laptop with its screen half closed. Improvised, ugly, real, not a bomb maybe, but enough to start a fire in a sealed concrete room under a dry old screen with panicked customers outside. The laptop's battery icon blinked low. The power strip sparked once. Small, blue, almost pretty. Maya saw it too. Out, now. Karen had Owen half free. The tape clung to his skin and chair legs. She pulled too hard and he cried out. Slow, Maya said, there's gas. I know, slow anyway or you'll rip him open. The phone in my hand crackled. The man said, you have 3 minutes before the file uploads. What file? The whole show. I understood then, not all of it, but enough. The reflections. The screen changes. The planted shirt. The PA. The missing child. It wasn't random. It was staged for an audience, and for another audience beyond us. A revenge prank scaled up until it became a crime. Why, I said, Frank ruined my brother. Frank's voice shouted from somewhere outside, closer to the concession building. Eli, then a crash, metal on metal. The man on the phone looked away from his camera, listening to something on his end. He made it to the booth. Maya ripped the last tape from Owen's ankles. Eli, help me. I shoved the phone into Jonah's hands. Don't hang up. What do I say? Nothing. Let him talk. I ducked inside B3. The ceiling was low enough that my shoulders hunched automatically. The gasoline smell coated my tongue. Karen had Owen against her chest, but he couldn't stand. His legs folded under him. His breathing came in sharp little whistles. I have his inhaler, Karen said, frantic. It's in the car. We'll get him there, Maya said. No, I said. Not through the lot. Maya followed my look. The slick on the floor had spread toward the doorway. Jonah stood outside with the flashlight, backing away from it. If someone dropped a cigarette, if the power strip sparked harder, if the laptop overheated, any little stupid thing could make the room a chimney. We move him now, Maya said. I lifted Owen under the arms. He was lighter than I expected, all elbows and terror. He clung to my shirt with one hand, wheezing against my neck. Karen supported his legs, crying without sound. Maya kicked the power strip off the wall. It sparked. Once, a sharp pop. The room flashed blue. Everybody stopped. Nothing caught. Maya whispered, move. We moved. Outside, the night had become chaos. Frank was on the booth stairs, fighting with the man in the hoodie. Not a cinematic fight. Not punches that landed clean. It was two exhausted men grabbing fabric and wrists, banging shoulders against the rail. Frank had one hand on the man's backpack. The man swung backward with something dark in his fist. It hit Frank across the side of the head. Frank dropped to one knee on the stairs. Maya shouted, Frank. The man tore free and ran up toward the booth door. Jonah still held the phone. On the screen, the live face vanished as the call disconnected. That's him, Jonah said uselessly. I passed Owen to Karen and Maya. Get him to the Civic, inhaler, then keep him low. Maya grabbed my wrist. Eli, no, he's in the booth. Let him go. He controls the screen, the PA, maybe the upload. Eli, he's not done. That was the truth. I knew it in my body. The kind of person who taped a child to a chair under a screen didn't run because he was finished. He ran because the next step was upstairs. I went. My knee hated me. Halfway to the stairs, it nearly gave out, and I had to catch myself on the corner of the concession building. My palm reopened. Warm blood slicked my fingers. Frank was slumped on the lower landing, breathing but dazed. Blood ran from his hairline into his eyebrow. "Don't," he mumbled. "What happened in 2011? His eyes tried to focus. "Kid fell." "What kid?" "Tyler Voss, prank Booth. He fell off the stairs. The old prank. Not harmless. Never harmless." "His brother?" I asked. Frank shut his eyes. That was enough. I climbed. Inside the booth, the man was bent over the rack, yanking cables from a black backpack into the projector controls. The only light came from his laptop and the status LEDs, green and amber, blinking across his hands. He turned when I hit the doorway. Up close, he looked younger than the screen had made him. 30, maybe. Thin from bad habits and bad sleep. His cap brim shadowed eyes that were wet but not soft. "Get out," he said. "Where's your brother?" His face changed, just a twitch. "Don't talk about him." "Tyler," he came at me. No warning. I stepped back, but the booth was too small. His shoulder hit my chest. My bad knee buckled. We crashed into the rolling chair and then the metal rack. Equipment beeped. The projector image outside flickered back on, bright white for an instant, lighting the booth like lightning. He grabbed my throat with one hand and pushed, not enough to choke me fully, enough to shove my head against the rack and make sparks pop behind my eyes. "You all watched," he said. "Everyone watched." I clawed at his wrist. "I didn't work here then." Frank did. His other hand reached toward the keyboard. I saw the laptop screen over his shoulder, a progress bar. Upload 87% below it, a folder labeled SDARLITE final. Videos, edited clips, live feeds, Owen, Karen, the lot, us. A nightmare packaged for release. Maybe he wanted revenge on Frank. Maybe he wanted the world to see. Maybe both had become the same thing in his head. I drove my knee up, not hard, not well. It hit his thigh, and he grunted but didn't let go. I reached blindly along the rack and found the one thing I understood, the red stop button. I slammed it. The projector fan dipped. The outside screen went black again. The man screamed, not in fear, in rage. He let go of my throat and punched me in the mouth. My teeth cut my lip. I tasted blood immediately. Then Maya appeared in the doorway and hit him with Jonah's trash grabber. It bent around his shoulder with a ridiculous metallic twang. For half a second, all three of us stared at it. Maya said, breathless, "That worked less than I hoped." The man lunged toward her. She threw the whole grabber into his legs. He tripped. I grabbed the backpack still connected to the rack and pulled. Cables tore free. One snapped back and struck my cheek. The laptop slid off the table, hit the floor, and the screen cracked. The upload bar vanished into a web of broken pixels. The man crawled for it. Maya kicked it away. He grabbed her ankle. She fell hard, shoulder hitting the doorframe. She cried out, sharp and real. I picked up the rolling chair and shoved it into him. Not swung, shoved. It caught him in the ribs and pinned him against the rack long enough for Jonah to arrive behind Maya with Frank's crowbar. Jonah's voice shook. "Stop." The man froze. The crowbar trembled in Jonah's hands, pointed like a spear. For a second, nobody moved except the projector fan spinning down. Then the man started laughing. Softly. "You think that stops it?" Maya sat up, clutching her shoulder. "It stops you," he smiled at her. From below, a car horn blared, then another. Red light began to pulse faintly through the booth window. Not police, an ambulance, fire. No, the lot had found the road flares from Frank's emergency binder. Someone had lit them along the exit lane, guiding people away from the blocked pickup and toward the shoulder. Ordinary people doing the ordinary smart thing once the worst confusion passed. And then, far off beyond the main road, real sirens rose. Thin at first, closer. Frank must have got the landline working, or someone had found a signal near the road. I didn't know yet. The man heard them too. His smile failed. Jonah lowered the crowbar an inch. That was all the man needed. He shoved the chair aside and bolted through the door, knocking Jonah into the railing. Jonah caught himself, but the crowbar clattered down the stairs. The man ran down 2 steps, then Frank, still bleeding on the landing, reached out and hooked his ankle. Both of them went down. It was ugly. Bodies on metal stairs. A shoulder hitting a rail. Frank yelling. The man cursing. Maya and I stumbled after them, but by the time we reached the landing, Jonah had thrown himself across the man's back and wrapped both arms around him, crying and swearing and refusing to let go. Frank held the man's wrist with both hands. His name, Frank gasped, is Aaron Voss. Aaron spat at him. You remember now. Frank's face folded around something older than pain. I remembered every day, he said. The sirens turned into the entrance lane. Blue and red lights washed over the starlight, over the rows of cars, over Karen sitting on the gravel beside the blue Civic with Owen in her lap, while Maya pressed the inhaler to his mouth and counted his breaths. 1, 2, 3. Owen coughed, then breathed. Not well, not cleanly, but he breathed. Aaron Voss stopped fighting when the first sheriff's deputy reached the stairs with a flashlight and a drawn taser. Jonah rolled away and vomited over the side of the landing. Frank stayed on his knees, blood dripping off his chin. Maya sat beside Owen now, one arm hanging wrong, her face gray with pain. I stood there with my lips split, palm bleeding, knee shaking so badly I had to grip the rail. The big screen stayed black. For the first time all night, it showed nothing at all. And somehow that empty white rectangle, looming over us in the strobe of emergency lights, looked less like safety than a place waiting to be filled again. The first ambulance didn't drive all the way into the lot. It couldn't. Dale's pickup was still jammed crooked across half the exit lane, its rear tires sunk into gravel and loose dirt. The splintered wooden barrier, wedged under the bumper like the starlight itself, had grabbed hold and refused to let him leave. So the EMTs parked near the ticket booth and came in on foot, orange bags bouncing against their hips, flashlights cutting through the smoke from the road flares customers had set along the lane. Nobody cheered when they arrived. That's one of the details that stuck with me. In movies, rescue has a sound. Sirens, shouting, people crying with relief. At the starlight, it was mostly people stepping back in little guilty movements, making room between cars, whispering updates to strangers. The movie screen stayed blank above us. The wind pushed at it now and then, flexing the white surface with a low canvas groan. I sat on the bottom stair of the projection booth with a wad of concession, napkins pressed to my split lip, and watched a paramedic kneel in front of Owen. Owen Whitcomb, 6, male, looked impossibly small under the emergency blanket. His green dinosaur shirt was evidence now, sealed later in a brown paper bag. So he wore one of our oversized starlight hoodies from the merch rack, red and faded, sleeves rolled up to his elbows. His mother, Karen Whitcomb, 36, female, stayed on the gravel beside him with one hand hooked around his ankle, as if someone might still try to pull him away. Every time the EMT asked Owen a question, Karen answered first until the EMT gently said, "Mom, let him try." Owen's voice came out thin. "My chest hurts." "I know, buddy," the EMT said. "We're going to help with that." Karen held the inhaler in both hands, though they had already used it. Her knuckles were pale. She kept staring toward the screen supports, toward B3, but she didn't ask to go back there. She had seen enough of that room. We all had. Maya Reeves, 24, female, was on the other side of Owen, sitting on an overturned popcorn bucket because she refused to lie down. Her left arm was strapped against her body with a temporary sling, and her face had gone a flat gray color that made her freckles stand out. When a second EMT touched her shoulder, she hissed through her teeth and said, "It's probably just bruised." The EMT said, "It's probably not." Maya looked at me. "Don't smile." I wasn't smiling. My mouth hurt too much. Jonah Price, 19, male, sat near the rear tire of the blue Civic, elbows on knees, both hands wrapped around a bottle of water he hadn't opened. Someone had given him a clean towel for his face after he vomited off the booth landing. He kept staring at the trash grabber lying bent in the gravel, like he couldn't believe that had been his contribution to stopping a man. It was more than mine in some ways. Frank Bell, 62, male, had a bandage pressed to his head by a deputy who looked young enough to have bought popcorn from him as a kid. Frank kept trying to stand, and the deputy kept saying, "Sir, sit down." Blood had dried along Frank's eyebrow and into the silver hair above his ear. In the red pulse of the flares, he looked older than he had that afternoon. Not sick, hollowed. Aaron Voss was face down on the gravel near the booth stairs for maybe 3 minutes before they sat him up. He was 31, male, and looked less frightening once the deputies had him cuffed. That bothered me. In the booth, in the dark, with one hand at my throat and a laptop full of staged footage behind him, he had felt like the center of the whole night. On the gravel with his cap knocked off, he looked like a tired man with thinning brown hair, a bleeding cheek, and a jaw clenched against the fact that his plan had ended with him, pinned under a 19-year-old lot attendant. A deputy read him his rights. Aaron looked at Frank the whole time. Frank didn't look back. The sheriff's department treated the Starlight like a crime scene before any of us were ready to think of it that way. They taped off B3 first, then the booth, then the concession office, where the PA mic still had silver duct tape residue on its red button. They photographed the cut chain at the back gate. They photographed Owen's sneakers, the gasoline can, the power strip, the little wireless camera clipped to the shelf, and the cracked laptop Maya had kicked away. One deputy asked me to walk him through it. I tried. I started with the popcorn warmer reflection, which sounded ridiculous as soon as I said it. He didn't laugh. He wrote it down. "So the main screen did not initially show the altered footage?" he asked. "No. At first, it was only reflections." "Reflections in what?" "Glass. Windshields. The Nacho machine. Monitor bezel." He paused. "And later the main screen changed." "Yes. How?" "I don't know exactly." That was the answer I hated most, but it was the truest one I had. A technician from the county came around 2 hours later and gave a less haunted explanation. Aaron had tapped into old conduit between the projection booth and the storage rooms behind the screen. He'd set up a secondary wireless receiver and video switcher, the cheap kind people use for security cameras and live streams. He had also planted reflective film on parts of the concession glass, and some of the old menu covers, angled so the hidden feed could be seen in certain surfaces before he fully hijacked the projector. Not magic, angles, timing, bad wiring, human planning. The windshields were harder to explain until they found a short throw projector hidden in the bed of an old maintenance cart behind the first row, aimed low enough to splash images across reflective car glass without hitting the main screen directly. Most people hadn't seen it at first because they were watching the movie, and because the human brain is generous with confusion when it wants the night to remain normal. Mine had been especially generous. The woman's voice on the PA was Aaron's voice run through a phone app and a small audio processor. Owen's coughing had been a mix of live audio from B3 and recordings Aaron triggered from the booth. The motel room wasn't a real motel. It was B3 dressed with curtains, a bedspread, and a lamp to look like a room from the movie. He had filmed pieces in advance, then mixed live shots with pre-recorded ones so nobody could tell what was happening when. The part I could not stop thinking about was how much work it had taken. Not rage in one burst. Work. Weeks, maybe months, of buying cables and cameras, learning Frank's routines, cutting a chain at the right time, knowing where cell service failed, knowing that the landline junction box outside the office could be opened with a flathead screwdriver. Aaron had not needed anything impossible. He had only needed patience, bitterness, and a place old enough to have forgotten its own weak spots. By 3 a.m, Owen and Karen were gone in the ambulance. Maya went in the second one after the EMT finally convinced her that a shoulder could be dislocated and broken at the same time, which seemed unnecessary of her body. She tried to hand me the concession keys before they loaded her. I said, "Maya, I don't think we're opening tomorrow." She blinked at me, exhausted, then laughed once. It turned into a wince. Right, good point. Jonah refused transport, then changed his mind after he stood up and nearly fainted. The EMT said shock did funny things. Jonah said, "I tackled a criminal," with the dazed pride of someone saying it mostly to convince himself. "You did," I told him. He looked embarrassed. I was crying. "You still tackled him." Frank stayed until the deputies made him leave for stitches. Before he went, he stood beside me near the ticket booth while the tow truck worked on Dale's pickup. The road flares had burned down to little red nubs, hissing on the gravel. The first gray line of morning hadn't shown yet, but the night had thinned. Birds were starting up in the trees beyond the drainage ditch, one at a time, like they were testing whether it was safe. Frank held an ice pack to his head. "I should have told you about Tyler," he said. I didn't answer right away. Tyler Voss had been 17 in 2011. That much came out from Frank in pieces, and later from public records. He and 2 friends had broken into the booth after hours to splice crude jump scare footage into trailers for a midnight show. Film wasn't film anymore, even then, but the language stuck. They had climbed the outside stairs in the rain, drunk or high or both, depending on whose old statement you believed. Tyler fell from the landing, hit the concrete edge below, and survived with a traumatic brain injury that changed him permanently. Frank said he called 911. The records said he did. They also said the starlight settled quietly with the family, and installed better locks. Then Frank stopped talking about it. The town stopped talking about it. Tyler went into long-term care 2 counties over. Aaron grew up inside the kind of silence that ferments instead of heals. I didn't ruin him, Frank said, but there was no force behind it. But I didn't help after. The tow truck winch groaned. Dale's pickup shifted backward with a wooden crack as the barrier gave way. I'm not the person you need to say that to, I said. Frank nodded. His eyes moved to the blank screen. They'll close me down for this. Maybe they should. That was the first honest thing I had heard him say all night without fighting it. For the next week, the Starlight was on local news, and then regional news, and then, briefly, national news in the lazy way strange crimes get passed around between weather segments. The headlines all used the same words: drive-in abduction, revenge plot, horror screening stunt. None of them said what it felt like to hear a child coughing through a metal door. None of them captured the smell of gasoline in a concrete room, or the sound of Jonah trying not to cry while holding a crowbar. Owen spent one night in the hospital for observation. His asthma attack was serious, but controlled. He had bruises around his wrists from the tape, and a scrape along his shin where Aaron had dragged or forced him through the back route. Karen gave one statement through an attorney and then asked the media to leave her family alone. I never blamed her. Maya had a fractured collarbone and a dislocated shoulder. She texted me a photo of herself in a sling 2 days later with the message, "Tell Frank I am suing the ghost," I wrote back. "No ghost," she replied. "Fine." Suing the ambience. Jonah quit before Frank could close the place. He said he was going to work at his uncle's landscaping company because lawns did not usually require him to make announcements during kidnappings. He also started seeing a counselor. He told me that like he expected me to joke about it, so I didn't. I gave my statement 3 times, once to the deputies, once to a detective, once to an insurance investigator who asked if I had noticed any prior vulnerabilities in the projection system, which made me laugh so hard my split lip reopened. They asked why I didn't stop the movie sooner. I told them the truth. I thought there was an explanation. I thought stopping it would make things worse. I thought I had more time. Those were 3 different answers, and all of them were true. Aaron Voss was charged with kidnapping, aggravated assault, reckless endangerment, unlawful restraint, burglary, and a list of technical crimes I couldn't keep straight. The prosecutor said the gasoline and wiring could support additional charges. His lawyer argued he had never intended to kill Owen, only scare Frank and expose the drive-in's history. Maybe that was true. Maybe intentions stop mattering once a 6-year-old is taped to a chair beside a gas can. The Starlight never reopened that summer. By July, the sign out front said closed for REPARS in black plastic letters, though there were no repairs happening that I could see. By August, weeds had grown tall around the ticket booth. Someone stole the menu board letters. The screen stayed standing, blank and too white in the sun, with a long vertical tear near the upper right corner where wind had worried at the material after the power died. I went back once in September to collect my last. Frank met me at the concession door. He had lost weight. The place smelled stale without fryer oil and popcorn covering the damp. Inside, the floor was swept, the machines unplugged, the candy boxes stacked on the counter like nobody had decided what to do with sweetness after disaster. He gave me an envelope. "You working?" he asked. "Warehouse again, day shift." Good. It wasn't good exactly, but it was steady. We stood there awkwardly. The popcorn warmer sat between us, empty and clean. Its curved glass reflected the dark concession stand, the snack counter, Frank's tired face my own. No motel room, no open door, just us. "I'm selling," Frank said. I nodded. "To who?" "Developer. Storage units, probably." "That sounds about right." He almost smiled. Before I left, I walked out into the lot. The parking humps were still there, white paint flaking off their sides. The old playground tape had come loose and wrapped itself around the monkey bars. The back gate had a new chain, thicker than the old one, though there wasn't much left to protect. I stood in row 1 where Karen's blue Civic had been. In daylight, the distances looked smaller. The booth was close. The screen was close. B3 was just a door under a structure, sealed now with plywood and county stickers. It seemed impossible that the place had stretched so far in the dark. I turned toward the screen. For a second, I saw nothing but dirty white vinyl and bird droppings. Then a passing truck on Lincoln Way West threw sunlight across the concession window behind me. The reflection flashed onto the popcorn warmer glass inside, then bounced faintly across the screen in a warped rectangle. Just light, just angle, just physics. Still, in that brief pale smear, I thought I saw a door. Not opening, not even fully there. Only the shape of one, the way your mind finishes a picture from a few lines. I waited until the truck noise faded. The screen was blank. The concession stand was empty. The storage room stayed sealed. I told myself there was an explanation, because there was. There had always been an explanation. Cables, projectors, tape, grief, negligence, anger. Ordinary things arranged carefully enough to make the world feel impossible. That should have comforted me. It didn't. I drove out through the main exit slowly, both hands on the wheel, checking the rearview mirror only once. That's it for this nightmare. If you enjoyed it, please like the video, subscribe to Mia Horror Stories, and turn on notifications. It really helps keep the stories alive. And don't stop here. Dive into another one of our videos and keep the fear going. Welcome to Mia Horror Stories. To make it easier on your eyes, this video plays against a black screen, so you can close your eyes, get comfortable, and let the story take over. But don't relax too much, the ending might just catch you off guard. Stay with me until the very last word. The first weird thing was the barking didn't move. That sounds like a dumb way to put it, but anyone who works kennels knows barking has direction. It rolls down the runs. It jumps from one dog to another. You can tell when somebody's at the front door, when a truck backs up near intake, when a possum waddles along the back fence, because the sound travels with it like a thrown match lighting paper. This didn't. Every dog in row C was facing cage C12, and C12 had been empty since Monday. My name is Mara Ellis, 31, female, and at the time, I was the lead kennel tech at Franklin County Animal Care, just outside Columbus, Ohio, where the city thins into warehouse lots, gas stations, and flat fields that smell like wet leaves whenever it rains. I wasn't management. I wasn't a vet. I was the person who opened the building at 6:15 a.m., bleached what needed bleaching, fed the dogs who ate like vacuum cleaners, and coaxed the dogs who wouldn't, made sure the laundry didn't turn into a swamp, and pretended I didn't know which animals were running out of time. That morning, the fluorescent lights over row C were still warming up, clicking and humming in weak strips, and the concrete floor had that slick look it got after overnight mopping. The whole building smelled like disinfectant, kibble dust, old fur, and the sour metal tang of fear that never fully left the intake wing. "Hey," I said, because sometimes dogs just needed a human voice. Nobody looked at me. 32 dogs, give or take the ones tucked behind privacy panels, were pressed toward their kennel gates, barking into the same empty rectangle. C12 had a raised cot folded against the wall, a steel water bucket hanging dry on the chain, and a laminated card clipped to the front. Vacant, CLEANED/54. The card had my handwriting on it. Big block letters, because when I'm tired my script turns into fishing line. A Brindle Pit mix named Waffles rammed his shoulder against his gate hard enough to make the chain latch jump. "Waffles, knock it off." He stopped for half a breath, glanced at me with the whites of his eyes showing, then snapped his head right back toward C12 and started again. Behind me, a mop bucket squeaked over the floor. "That better not be Parvo Row," said Luis Benitez, 26, male, our morning animal care assistant, coming in sideways with one earbud dangling down his neck and his hoodie sleeves shoved up past his elbows. Luis had a way of joking before his brain had decided whether something was funny. It kept him moving. It also kept him from looking too long at anything sad. "It's row C," I said. "I can hear that. Row C sounds like it's being murdered." "Empty kennel," he slowed. Luis had been at the shelter 8 months, long enough to learn the difference between shelter noise and panic. His eyes went to C12, then to the dogs, then back to me. "Mouse?" he asked. "Maybe." He made a face. "Please be a mouse. I can handle a mouse. I have emotionally prepared for one mouse." A calm little pocket opened in the middle of all that noise, ridiculous and human. I almost laughed. The morning was still ordinary enough to allow it. Luis set the mop bucket against the wall and lifted both hands like he was approaching a bomb. "Okay, babies," he said louder. "Everybody relax. Uncle Luis is gonna find the tiny criminal." The dogs did not relax. A black lab named Juniper, who usually greeted Luis like he personally invented breakfast, had her nose shoved through the lower bars of her kennel. She was barking in short, chopping bursts. Not excited, not alerting, warning. I went to C12 and bent at the knees, keeping my face away from the bars out of habit. Empty kennel, clean drain, no bedding, no bowl, no animal tucked behind the side wall. The concrete inside was dry, except for one crescent-shaped smear near the back corner where the mop hadn't quite reached. Gray, maybe dirt, maybe old rubber from someone's shoe. I unlatched the gate. The barking changed. Not louder exactly, tighter. Every dog hit the front of their kennel at once, nails scraping, collars clinking, their voices stacking into a sound you felt in your teeth. I froze with my hand still on the latch. Luis said, "Mara." I looked back at him. His joking face was gone. From the office side of the shelter came the clack of sensible shoes moving fast over tile. And then Denise Hargrove appeared at the end of the row, 54, female, our shelter manager, wearing a fleece vest over her blouse and carrying a clipboard like it was a shield. Denise had worked municipal shelters since before I was in high school. She could handle angry owners, busted HVAC units, inspectors, bite reports, and volunteers crying in the supply closet. What she hated was uncertainty. Lean problem she could fix. A strange one made her sharp. "What is happening back here?" she shouted. "Row C is reacting to C12, I said. C12 is empty." "I know." Denise stopped 3 kennels away from us, not because she was afraid, I don't think Denise would call it that, but because the dogs nearest her were throwing themselves so hard at the gates that spit flecked the metal. "Did somebody put a cat in there?" she asked. "No, a raccoon. We haven't checked." "You opened intake already?" "Not yet." Her mouth tightened. "Then why is every dog in this building screaming at an empty run?" Louis gave a weak little shrug. "Vibes." Denise looked at him. "Sorry," he said. I eased the latch back into place without opening the gate all the way. The dogs didn't settle, but the pitch changed again, like they had been leaning over the edge of something, and I'd taken half a step back. That bothered me more than the barking. Denise heard it too. I could tell from the way her eyes moved. She wasn't a sentimental person, but she trusted animals in the narrow ways experience had taught her to. Dogs were wrong all the time about mail carriers and vacuum cleaners. They were rarely wrong together. She pulled her radio from her belt. "Tasha, are you up front?" A burst of static answered. Then, "Yeah, barely. Coffee hasn't kicked in." Tasha Miller, 42, female, our front desk coordinator, had the voice of someone who had spent 15 years talking people down from either surrendering animals they loved or demanding animals we couldn't legally release. She was warm until she was. She also knew every camera angle in the building because she checked them whenever she got bored, which was often. "Check the overnight cameras on row C," Denise said. "Specifically C12. "Why? Just check." There was a pause. Even through radio static, I could hear the dogs from Tasha's end. "Jesus, is that back there? Cameras, please." I stood in front of C12 with my keys cutting into my palm. I had a private fear I didn't talk about at work because it sounded too dramatic for what we did, and because everyone in animal care had some version of it. Mine was that I would miss the obvious thing. A loose latch. A dog refusing food because of pain. A note on a chart. The little warning that, if caught early, kept a bad morning from turning into the kind people remembered in depositions and staff meetings and nightmares. 3 years earlier, at a clinic in Dayton, I had missed a swollen stitch line under a cone because the lobby was full and the phones were ringing, and a terrier kept screaming every time anyone touched him. The dog lived. That was what people told me, but he nearly didn't. Since then, I checked things twice, then once more, and still never fully trusted myself. C12 had my handwriting on it. Cleaned, vacant, safe. The dogs disagreed. Tasha's voice came back over the radio. Denise." Denise closed her eyes for half a second. "What?" Camera 3 glitched out at 2:14. Define glitched. Black screen for maybe 12 seconds. Then normal. Before that, nothing. Empty row. After, another pause. The dogs kept barking. "Tasha," Denise said. "I'm rewinding." Louis leaned close to me and lowered his voice. "This is where I vote for the mouse." I tried to smile, but my mouth didn't do it right. At the far end of row C, a shepherd mix named Martin stopped barking and began to whine. Long, nasal, miserable. Then Juniper did the same. Then 2 more dogs. The sound loosened something in my stomach. Barking I could work through. Whining meant confusion, fear, pain nearby, something they wanted distance from and couldn't reach. Denise pointed toward the dogs. Start breakfast. Normal routine. Sometimes routine breaks a loop. That was shelter logic, and it was good logic. Don't feed panic. Feed the animals. Move the morning forward. Louis and I went to the prep room. The prep room was narrow, with metal counters dented by years of scoops and cans, shelves labeled in Denise's blocky handwriting, and a refrigerator that clicked like an old man's knee. I filled stainless bowls while Louis worked the dry food bins. The sound of kibble pouring usually settled my head. It was measurable. 1.5 cups for small dogs, 2 cups for big. Medication cups on the top shelf. Peanut butter for the ones who knew better. But row C kept going. Maybe construction, Louis said, dumping food into bowls. Like vibration through the wall at 6 a.m. Warehouse guys start early. Then they'd bark at the wall. Maybe the empty kennel has good acoustics. I looked at him. Bad joke, he said. I'm not doing great. It's okay. It doesn't feel okay. No, he set the scoop down. You think something got in. I don't know. But you're thinking it. I'm thinking I don't like that the camera went out. Louis rubbed both hands over his face. He had dog hair on his cheek. Cameras go out. Yes, computers are trash. Yes, he waited, I said, and dogs bark at mice. Exactly. And squirrels. See? And people. He stopped moving. That was the thing nobody wanted to say too early. People broke into shelters more than the public thought. To steal dogs, to dump dogs, to get back an animal on bite hold, to sleep, to vandalize, to do things that made Denise install more cameras than the county wanted to pay for. The back door had an alarm. The side gate had a padlock. The intake vestibule needed a code. But buildings are just buildings. They're drywall and screws and tired hinges and people assuming someone else checked the last thing. Denise stepped into the prep room. The noise followed her like weather. Tasha says camera 3 goes black at 2:14, she said. Camera 4, same time. Front hall stayed on. Exterior north lot stayed on. She's pulling the clip. Power dip, I asked. Maybe. Any doors? Alarm log shows no entry after 9:08 p.m. when Noah left. Noah Price, 38 male, was our night security contractor, though calling him security made it sound more official than it was. He checked doors, walked the fence, logged maintenance issues, and sat in his car watching videos when nothing happened. He was ex-military, polite in the tired way of men who had learned to keep their voices low. And he had once told me he preferred animals because they gave clearer warnings than people. Did Noah report anything? Louis asked. No. Denise glanced at me. He clocked out normal. I thought about the smudge inside C12. I want to check the kennel. Denise's answer came fast. Not with the dogs like this. I'll step in, look behind the divider, check the drain. 30 seconds. It's empty. You asked why they're barking at an empty run. Her jaw flexed. That was our dynamic most days. Denise made decisions from the top, and I pushed from the floor when the animals told me something different. We respected each other, which did not mean we made each other's lives easy. Before she could answer, Tasha's voice crackled from the radio again. I've got the clip. Denise lifted the radio. What do you see? You need to come look. Tell me what you see. It's not. Tasha stopped. Static hissed. It's easier if you come look. Denise said something under her breath I couldn't quite hear. The dogs hit a new pitch. A bang cut through the barking. Not a gate, not a bowl. A hard metal pop from row C. We all turned. Another bang. Then a scraping sound, short and violent, like a heavy chain dragged once across concrete. Louis whispered, "Nope." Denise moved first. I followed, because whatever my flaws were, staying behind had never been one of them. That wasn't bravery. It was compulsion. If something was wrong, I needed my eyes on it. Otherwise, my brain would fill the blank with worse. Row C was chaos. Waffles had backed away from his gate and was barking from the rear of his kennel now. Juniper had urinated, a shining puddle spreading under her paws. Martin had pressed himself into the corner with his ears flat. Half the dogs were no longer facing C12. They were facing the kennel beside it, C13. Its latch hung open. The gate moved slightly in the air wash from the HVAC vent above it. Inside, a small tan hound mix named Penny stood frozen on her cot, trembling so hard the metal frame ticked against the wall. Penny, 4 years old and maybe 28 pounds, had been picked up near Grove City after somebody reported her running along the shoulder of I-71 with a chewed-off rope still tied to her collar. She loved women, distrusted men, and had never made a sound louder than a cough in the 2 weeks we'd had her. Now her mouth was wide open. No sound came out. I stepped toward her kennel slow. "Mara," Denise said, "I'm just closing it." Penny's eyes tracked something behind me. Not me, behind me. I stopped. There are moments when the body understands the room before the mind does. I heard Louis stop breathing. I heard Denise's radio crackle against her vest. I heard the wet slap of Juniper pacing through her own urine, and the tiny, steady tick of Penny's cot against concrete. I turned my head. C12 was still closed, still empty. The latch was still seated where I'd put it. But the laminated vacant CLEANED/54 card on the front of the kennel was swinging back and forth on its clip. A small movement, easy to explain, air vent, vibration. All the dogs jumping around, except the card slowed, then twitched once sharply, as if someone had tapped it from inside. Louis said, "I'm calling maintenance." Denise said, "No, we're calling Noah first. He's off shift. We're calling him." I said, "We need to get Penny out." Denise didn't answer right away. Her eyes were on C12, and for once she looked older than 54. Not scared exactly, calculating, trying to force a messy thing into a procedure. The shelter had procedures for bites, escapes, aggressive intakes, disease outbreaks, severe weather, power loss, police holds, owner threats, and injured wildlife. It did not have a procedure for every dog in row C warning us about an empty cage while the kennel beside it unlatched itself. But the world was still the world. Latches failed, cameras glitched, dogs panicked, people made mistakes, and sometimes empty didn't mean safe. Denise lifted her radio. "Tasha," she said, voice clipped now. "Lock the front door. Put the phones to voicemail. Nobody comes back here." Tasha answered immediately. "Already done. Call Noah. Then call county facilities. Tell them we may have an intruder or structural issue in the kennel wing." "Intruder," Louis said, too loud. The dogs erupted again at the word, or maybe at his voice, or maybe at something none of us had heard. Denise looked at me. "You and Louis get slip leads. We move Penny out first, then clear row C into the yard, runs one dog at a time." "And C12, I asked. Her gaze went to the swinging card. It had almost stopped now. Almost. "We don't open it," Denise said. "That should have been the end of it. Lock it down. Call the people whose job was locked doors and broken buildings. Move the animals. Wait in the light of the front office with coffee going stale in paper cups. But Penny's gate was open, and Penny was staring past us with her mouth stretched in that silent, terrified shape. Then she bolted. She hit the half-open gate with her shoulder and slipped through before any of us could grab her. Her nails skittered on wet concrete. Louis lunged and missed. Penny shot down the road toward the back isolation corridor, dragging a short length of frayed rope we had removed from her collar days earlier. A rope that should have been sealed in her intake bag. I saw it bounce once against the floor. Denise saw it too. For 1 second, none of us moved. Then Penny disappeared around the corner into the oldest part of the shelter, where the cameras were bad, the lights buzzed, and the rear door opened onto the fenced service yard. Denise looked at the closed, empty kennel, then at me, then at Louis. We had a choice, though it didn't feel like one. Stay with the barking dogs and wait for help, or follow the loose, terrified hound into the back of the building before she hurt herself, escaped, or led us to whatever had made her run. I picked up a slip lead from the hook. Louis swallowed and took another. Denise did not tell us no. She only said, "Nobody goes alone." And together, with Row C still barking behind us at the cage that should not have mattered, we stepped toward the corner Penny had vanished around. We found Penny by following the sound her nails made. Not barking, not whining, just that frantic little skitter on old concrete, fast and uneven, like she was trying to run without letting her paws fully touch the floor. The back isolation corridor had always felt older than the rest of Franklin County animal care. The newer kennel wing was all white walls, sealed drains, bright lights, and posted sanitation checklists. The rear corridor had cinder block painted the color of old oatmeal, a ceiling patched in mismatched tiles, and one long fluorescent tube that took a full minute to decide whether it wanted to stay alive. It flickered as we turned the corner. Penny was 20 feet ahead of us, crouched beside the laundry room door with her belly close to the floor. The frayed rope dragged from her collar area, though I could see even from there it wasn't tied to the collar itself. It was looped badly through the D-ring and knotted once, like somebody had done it in a hurry. "Penny," I said softly. "Hey, sweetheart, you're okay." She looked at me, and for half a second I thought she might come. Then Louis stepped wrong. His shoes squeaked on the damp floor. Penny flinched so hard her back feet slid out from under her, and she bolted again. "Damn it," Louis breathed. "Chase," I said. I know, just don't." Denise came up behind us holding a slip lead in one hand and her radio in the other. Her face had settled into that hard administrative calm I had seen during bite reports and owner threats, but her eyes kept moving to the dark seams around the doors. Laundry room, medical storage, old cat quarantine, rear intake vestibule. "Close the fire door behind us," she said to Louis. He looked back toward row C. "What about the dogs?" "They're contained and losing their minds." "Louis," he went back and pulled the corridor fire door shut. The barking muffled immediately, not gone, just pushed behind metal, a boiling sound behind a lid. That quiet made everything smaller. The old corridor had its own noises. The fluorescent buzz, the dryer ticking in the laundry room, though nobody had started it yet that morning. Water somewhere in the pipes, tapping with no rhythm. Outside, a delivery truck backed up on the road beyond the service yard, its reverse alarm faint and far away. Penny had stopped at the end of the hall near the rear intake vestibule, and the rear door was open, not wide, maybe 3 inches, enough for a blade of gray morning light to cut across the floor. Denise said no, just one word. I knew why. That door had a keypad on the inside, a crash bar, and a magnetic contact tied into the alarm. If it opened after hours, it should have screamed through the whole building and sent a notice to the county dispatch line. I walked toward it before Denise could tell me not to. Mara, I'm looking. Don't touch the door. I'm not touching the door. Penny stood between me and the vestibule, trembling. She was staring at the gap. Her tail was tucked so hard it disappeared under her. The smell hit me halfway down the hall. Cold air, wet cardboard, diesel from the service lot. And under that, something sharper, bleach, not our regular shelter disinfectant. We used Rescue, a hydrogen peroxide cleaner that left a clean, slightly sour smell. This was chlorine bleach, heavy and swimming pool harsh, the kind that burned high in the nose. Louis coughed once behind me. You smell that? Yeah, I said. Denise lifted her radio. Tasha, rear intake door is ajar. Did the alarm show anything? Static. Tasha, nothing. Denise turned the dial up, tried again. Front desk, do you copy? The radio gave a thin hiss. Louis's voice dropped. That's new. The front desk was maybe 60 yards away through 2 corridors. The radios worked through Cinderblock, through storms, through Denise accidentally leaving hers in the walk-in cooler. Losing contact right then felt too neat, too theatrical. But radio batteries died. Interference happened. The old corridor had always been bad for signal. I reminded myself of that because the alternative was letting my brain make a monster out of bad infrastructure. Penny shifted. The rope scraped the floor. Penny, I whispered. Come here, baby. I crouched, turned my body sideways, held out the slip lead low. I didn't reach over her head. I didn't look directly into her eyes. Every fearful dog rule lived in my muscles. She took 1 step toward me. Then the rear door moved. Barely. A small inward pull, like wind had caught it from outside. Penny screamed. Not barked, screamed. She launched herself past me, rope whipping against my wrist. I grabbed without thinking and caught the rope instead of the collar. It burned through my palm, hot and rough. Penny twisted. I held on for maybe 2 seconds before the knot slipped and the rope snapped free. She shot back down the hall toward the fire door. Louis dropped to block her, arms wide. No, no, no. She veered left into the laundry room through the half-open door and vanished between stacked bins. I stood there with the loose rope in my hand, palm stinging, heart thudding in my ears. Denise was staring at the rear door. The gap had not widened. Okay, she said, too calm. Concrete problem. We have a loose dog, an unsecured rear door, possible chemical spill or unauthorized cleaner, and no radio contact with the front desk. Possible intruder, Louis said. Possible, Denise said. Not confirmed. That door didn't open itself. Wind pressure can move an unlatched door. An unlatched, alarmed door. Denise looked at him. I know. That was the first time her control cracked enough to show us something underneath. I wrapped the rope around my hand and wished immediately I hadn't. It smelled wrong. Not just bleach, sweat, old dirt. The damp, musky smell of a dog that had been scared for a long time. I looked at the fibers. There were darker spots caught in the twist. Mud, maybe. Rust. Blood, maybe. My private fear rose up in me with teeth. C12 had my card. My handwriting, my cleaned, my vacant. I had marked that kennel safe. I had moved through my checklist and trusted the building because the building usually earned it. But the rope in my hand said something had been missed. Maybe by me, maybe by all of us. We need to secure the door first, Denise said, then get Penny. We need to check the yard, Louis said. No, we don't. If somebody came in, if somebody is outside, we lock the door and call police. With what phone? Radio's dead. We have cell phones. I reached into my scrub pocket. No bars, not one. That happened in the back sometimes, especially near the old storage rooms where the roof was lined with HVAC ducting and wire mesh from an abandoned renovation. Still, seeing the blank signal icon made my stomach tight. Louis checked his phone. I've got SOS only. Denise pulled hers from her vest pocket. 1 bar. Call 911, Louis said. I am. She tapped the screen, lifted it to her ear, and we all stood there listening to nothing. After a few seconds, she lowered it. Call failed. Try by the door, I said. Denise didn't like being told what to do in her own building. She also wasn't stupid. She moved toward the rear vestibule, staying to one side of the open door, phone held up like an offering. The closer she got, the stronger the bleach smell became. Don't breathe too deep, I said. She gave me a quick, annoyed look, then coughed. The rear intake vestibule was a small square space between the kennel corridor and service yard, used for after-hours police drop-offs and animal control intakes. It had a stainless exam table on one wall, a scale, hooks for catch poles, a shelf of forms in plastic sleeves, and a floor drain that always smelled faintly swampy, no matter how often we cleaned it. The outer door led into the fenced service yard. Beyond that was the gravel lot, the dumpster enclosure, and the access road. Denise stood at the inner threshold and leaned just enough to see through the gap. What do you see? Louis asked. Yard gate is closed. Padlock. I can't see from here. Door contact. Denise looked at the top of the frame. The magnetic alarm sensor was hanging by its wire, not broken clean off, unscrewed. The little white plastic contact dangled against the beige doorframe, swaying gently every time the rear door breathed in the cold air. Louis whispered, "Oh, hell no." Denise tried the call again. This time I heard the faint chirp from her phone. It connected. Her shoulders changed. This is Denise Hargrove, Franklin County Animal Care Manager. We may have had unauthorized entry. Rear intake door has been tampered with possible intruder, one dog loose inside. We need police and county facilities. She listened. Yes, staff are inside. 4 staff total. 1 at front desk. No known injuries. Another pause. Her eyes flicked to my hand. 1 minor rope burn. No, we don't know if anyone is still on site. She gave the address, then repeated the back entrance details, then hung up. Police are being dispatched, she said. Facilities too, but police first. How long? Louis asked. They didn't give me a time. That meant not fast. We all knew it. Municipal shelters are important until there are car crashes, overdoses, domestic calls, and everything else that matters louder. From the laundry room came a crash. Then Penny barked once. Hi, terrified. I moved before Denise could decide. Mara, wait. She's in laundry. We do this controlled. She could get into chemicals. That stopped Denise. The laundry room was where practical shelter dreams went to die. Industrial washers, dryers, trash cans full of soiled towels, shelves with detergent, gloves, extra bowls, old carriers, broken crates waiting for someone with a screwdriver and optimism. It was also where we stored secondary cleaning supplies, including things we were not supposed to use in animal areas unless diluted by policy and signed off by Denise. Bleach was on the top shelf. If Penny knocked something over, if a bottle had already spilled, if chlorine mixed with the wrong cleaner, this stopped being spooky and became an actual hazmat problem. Denise pointed at Louis. Prop the corridor door with the yellow wedge. If she bolts, I want her going back toward row C, not outside. Mara, you take left. I take right, slow. Nobody corners her. What about the rear door? Louis asked. Denise looked toward the dangling alarm contact. We pull it shut first. You said don't touch it. I said that before I knew police weren't already here and the door was open. It was the kind of decision that would look bad in a report, no matter which way she made it. Leave the door open and risk a dog escaping or a person re-entering. Close it and disturb evidence. Denise chose the living animal. She used the edge of her sleeve to grip the door and pulled it shut. The latch clicked, but weakly. She tested it once. It held. Then she wedged a metal stool under the handle from the inside. Temporary, she said, mostly to herself. Louis hurried to the fire door. The barking from row C surged as he opened it, then dropped again when he jammed the wedge underneath and left the door cracked. Sound spilled through the gap dogs, metal, desperation. I stood outside the laundry room and flexed my burned hand. The rope had left a red stripe across my palm, already swelling. You okay? Louis asked. Yeah, you're bleeding. I looked. A shallow split had opened near the base of my thumb. I'm okay. You always say that. He didn't mean it as an accusation, but it landed like one. I did always say that. At the Dayton clinic, I had said it for 2 weeks after the terrier. At this shelter, I said it whenever a dog was euthanized and someone asked if I needed a minute. I said it because if I admitted I was okay, I might have to stop moving. And if I stopped moving, I might miss the next thing. Denise pushed the laundry door wider with 2 fingers. Penny, she called. Her manager voice softened into something older. Honey, we're not mad. The laundry room lights were off. Louis reached for the switch. Wait, I said. He froze. There was a sound inside. A slow drip. And another. Not from the sinks. Lower. I reached in and flipped the light on myself. The fluorescent panel blinked awake in pieces. Penny was wedged between a rolling laundry bin and the wall, trembling so violently the hanging towels above her shook. Her front paw was lifted. Blood speckled the concrete under it. Glass? Louis asked. I scanned the floor. Not glass. A plastic gallon jug lay on its side near the washer, cap off, liquid spreading in a thin shining fan toward the central drain. The label faced up, bleach. Beside it sat a second bottle, half hidden behind a detergent bucket. Ammonia-based floor cleaner. My mouth went dry. Everybody back, I said. Denise saw it a beat later. Out now. Louis had already taken 2 steps in. Penny's bleeding. Louis out, Denise snapped. He backed up, hands raised, face pale. The smell was stronger inside, a chemical bite that made my eyes water. Bleach and ammonia together can make chloramine gas. We all knew that from training videos we half watched once a year while eating vending machine chips. Usually it felt theoretical. Something that happened because a new volunteer mixed buckets wrong. Now there was a terrified dog trapped 6 feet from both bottles, and the room had poor ventilation. Penny whimpered. I crouched at the doorway, staying low but outside. Penny, come on, come here. She didn't move. Her lifted paw shook. Her eyes were glassy with fear. Niece pulled her radio again out of reflex, cursed. and shoved it back. "We need fresh air." "The window," Louis said. The laundry room had one small high window facing the service yard, painted shut years ago, but not barred. "Don't go in," I said. "I can reach from the doorway with the broom." He grabbed a broom from the hall hook and extended it toward the window latch. His first jab missed. The broom handle clattered against the wall. Penny flinched and pressed harder into the gap. "Easy," I said. "I'm trying. Don't scare her more." "I know, Mara." The second jab caught the latch but didn't move it. Denise was already pulling towels from a clean bin. She shoved one at me. "Wet this. Cover your nose if you have to go in." "We are not going in. If she won't come out, somebody has to." That was Denise's flaw, though I wouldn't have called it that to her face. She believed every problem could be solved by assigning responsibility hard enough. If a thing needed doing, someone did it. If policy did not cover it, she built a temporary policy out of authority and willpower. But gas did not care who was in charge. "We wait for fire," I said. "We called police, then call fire. No signal unless I'm by the rear door. Then go by the rear door." She started to argue. Penny coughed, not a bark, not a whimper. A small, wet, wrong cough. That ended the argument. Denise went to the rear door with her phone. Louis got the window latch on the third try. It snapped loose with a crack of old paint, and the window opened half an inch. Cold air threaded in, barely enough to stir the hanging towels. "Again," I said. He pushed with the broom until the sash scraped upward another few inches. "Better, not enough." Denise spoke rapidly into her phone near the rear door. "We need fire response as well. Possible chemical exposure. Bleach and ammonia in laundry room, one dog trapped, staff in adjacent hallway." I kept my eyes on Penny. "Penny, listen to me," I said, soft as I could manage with my throat burning. "You remember breakfast? You remember chicken? I know you do." I reached into my scrub pocket and found the treat pouch I always carried. Mostly crushed biscuits and one dried piece of chicken, left over from yesterday. Penny's nose twitched. "There you go," I whispered. I tossed a crumb just inside the doorway. She watched it land. Nothing. I tossed another, closer to the hall. Her eyes followed. Her lifted paw trembled. She wanted it. Fear pinned her harder than hunger. Louis knelt beside me. "Let me try. She's afraid of men. I know. I'll stay back." He took a biscuit crumb, crushed it smaller, and rolled it gently along the floor. It stopped halfway between us and her. Penny stretched her neck. Her injured paw touched down. She yelped and jerked it up again. "Cut bad," I said. "Bad?" Louis asked. "Can't tell." The air scratched at my throat. My eyes watered enough to blur the edges of the room. From row C, the dogs suddenly stopped barking. All of them. The quiet slammed into the hallway. Louis looked over his shoulder. Why did they stop? No one answered. Then, from behind the cracked fire door, Waffles let out one low growl. It was deep enough to feel in the floor. Another dog joined him. Then another. A row of growls, low and fixed, all pointing back toward the kennel wing we had left behind. Denise lowered the phone from her ear. The rear door handle moved. Once. Down an inch. Stopped against the stool wedged beneath it. Denise stared at it. The handle moved again, harder. The stool legs shrieked against the floor. Louis stood so fast his shoulder hit the doorframe. Someone else outside. Denise held one hand up like that could keep us still, keep the building calm, keep the morning from splitting open. The handle rattled again. Not wind, not pressure. A person testing it. "Mara," Denise said quietly. "Get Penny out." "How?" "Now." The time-sensitive problem sharpened into one impossible shape. Penny was trapped in a chemical spill. The police were not there yet. The rear door had been tampered with, and someone might be trying to get back inside while half the dogs in row C were growling at an empty cage. I wrapped the wet towel around my nose and mouth. Louis grabbed my arm. "You can't go in there. She won't come out. You'll get sick. She'll die." "That doesn't mean you have to. I marked C12 clean," I snapped. He let go. Words hung there, ugly and too loud. Denise looked at me then, really looked, and I knew she understood enough of what I meant. Not the whole Dayton story, maybe, not the private shape of it, but the need. The stupid, dangerous need to correct a mistake before it became permanent. I took the slip lead in my unburned hand and crouched lower. 30 seconds, Denise said. "If you cough hard, if you feel dizzy, you come out." I nodded. The rear door handle jerked again. The stool shifted. Louis grabbed the catch pole from the vestibule wall and braced it under the handle beside the stool, his face tight with fear. "I've got it." "No hero nonsense," Denise said. He gave a shaky laugh. "Look who's talking." I stepped into the laundry room. The air changed immediately. It was wet and sharp and wrong, crawling into my nose through the towel. My eyes streamed. The floor was slick under my shoes. Penny watched me come, shaking, mouth open, tongue flicking. "Good girl," I murmured, though it came out muffled. "Stay right there." I kept my body sideways and moved slowly, one knee bending, one hand extended with the chicken. The bleach puddle shone between us. I went around it, shoulder brushing hanging towels, trying not to knock anything loose. Penny didn't bite when I slipped the lead over her head. She collapsed, not unconscious, just gave up. Her legs folded, and her whole little body sagged into the floor like whatever had been holding her upright had finally run out. "I've got her," I said, then coughed hard enough to see white sparks at the edges of my vision. "Out," Denise barked. I scooped Penny under the ribs. She was lighter than she looked, all bones and panic, her heart hammering against my forearm. Pain flashed through my burned palm when the rope fibers stuck to the cut. I stumbled once near the door. Louis reached for me with one hand while still bracing the rear door with the catch pole. The handle behind him slammed down. The stool kicked loose. The rear door opened an inch. Cold air and gray light spilled in. So did a smell like wet clothing and cigarettes. Louis shoved the catch pole sideways under the handle and screamed, "Denise." Denise threw her shoulder into the door. I fell backward into the hall with Penny against my chest. The laundry room light flickered. Row C erupted again behind the fire door, and from outside the rear door, close enough that I could hear him breathing, a man's voice said, "Give me the dog." The man outside the rear door didn't shout. That made it worse. If he had screamed, if he had cursed and pounded on the metal like some drunk who'd wandered in from the access road, maybe my brain could have put him in a box labeled problem person and moved on. Shelters got problem people. People who wanted their dog back without paying fees. People who thought we had stolen a stray they'd never licensed. People who threatened us over euthanasia policies they didn't understand until they did. But this man spoke through the crack in the door like he was standing at a counter. "Give me the dog." Penny trembled against my chest, all sharp elbows and racing heartbeat. Her injured paw left little half-moon prints of blood on my scrub top. I was on the floor outside the laundry room, my lungs scraped raw from the chemical stink, my burned palm throbbing where the rope had chewed the skin open. Louis had both hands on the catch pole, using it like a brace, under the rear door handle. Denise had her shoulder planted against the door, feet slipping in slow, awful inches on the concrete. The metal stool we'd wedged there lay on its side now. The old rear corridor ran like a spine behind the shelter. Laundry room on the left, medical storage on the right, cat quarantine farther down, then the bend back toward row C, and the newer kennel wing. Behind us, the fire door sat cracked open with the yellow wedge under it, letting in the roar of the dogs. Ahead of us, the rear intake vestibule opened to the service yard, and there was a man on the other side of the only back exit. Denise gritted out, "This is a county facility. Police are on the way. I know what it is." His voice was muffled by the door and low enough that I couldn't place his age. Not young, not old, calm. Louis looked at me. His face was slick with sweat, his eyes watering from the laundry room fumes. "Mara, move." Scooted backward with Penny, heels scraping over the floor, until my back hit the wall opposite the laundry room. The dog pressed her face into the crook of my elbow. Her breath came in hot little bursts. Denise shifted her weight and slammed the door shut with her shoulder. Louis shoved the catch pole higher, pinning the handle. The latch caught. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Then the handle dipped again. Hard, the catch pole bowed. "Office," Denise said. "Now." "We can't go through him," Louis said. "Front office. Different exit. We get Penny there, lock the internal doors, meet police up front." It sounded like a plan. It sounded almost clean. That was our first attempt. Fall back to the front office, where Tasha was, where the phones worked, where the public entrance opened to the parking lot and the road. I got to my feet with Penny in my arms. My knees shook under her small weight. Louis kept the catch pole braced, while Denise grabbed the tipped stool and jammed it under the handle again. The door jumped once against it. The man outside made a sound, not a laugh, more like annoyance. "Don't make this hard," he said. Denise turned away from the door. Her face was gray now, not fear exactly, but the look of someone doing math she didn't like. "Move," she said. We moved. I carried Penny against my chest and tried not to breathe too deeply. Denise took the lead, fast but not running, because running makes animals panic and humans stupid. Louis came behind us, glancing back every 3 steps. The corridor took us away from the rear vestibule, past the laundry room with its open door and chemical shine on the floor, past medical storage, where shelves of bandage rolls and pill bottles sat behind a locked half window, then toward the fire door that separated the old rear wing from row C. The dogs behind it were no longer barking in random chaos. They were hitting in waves. Growl, bark, scrape, pause, growl, like something was moving past them, and each kennel reacted as it came level. Denise reached the fire door first and pulled the wedge free. "Ready?" "No," Louis said. She opened it anyway. The sound burst out so hard Penny convulsed in my arms. Row C stretched to our right, 12 kennels down each side, with C12 and C13 halfway along the left wall. Beyond row C was the cross hall leading to the prep room, then the adoption lobby, then the front office and public entrance. To our left, a short hallway led toward the sally port and the indoor meet and greet rooms. Every dog in row C had turned away from the rear corridor. They were facing C12 again, the empty kennel. Even with Penny out, even with a man at the back door, even with bleach fumes in the laundry room and sirens supposedly on their way, The dogs were locked onto that empty cage like it had become the center of the building. "Don't look at it," Denise said. Of course I looked. C12 was closed. The laminated card hung still. The gray smear at the back looked darker under the flickering light. Nothing moved inside, but the kennel beside it, C13, Penny's kennel, stood open. Its latch had a shiny scrape near the catch plate, fresh enough that bare metal showed through the old paint. Louis saw it too. That wasn't like that before. "Keep walking," Denise said. Halfway down row C, Waffles lunged at his gate and hit it with his full chest. The latch held, but the top hinge jumped. I flinched. Penny yelped. My grip tightened too hard, and she snapped at empty air near my forearm, not trying to bite me, just drowning in panic. "It's okay," I whispered. I know." The words were useless. I said them anyway. We reached the cross hall. The front office should have been visible through the little wired glass window in the door at the end. We should have seen Tasha at her desk, the blue glow of the monitor, maybe her coffee mug with the chipped red handle. Instead, the hallway lights ahead were out. Not the whole building, just the stretch toward the office. Denise stopped so suddenly Louis bumped into her. "What now?" he said. A phone rang somewhere in the dark. Once, twice, then stopped. "Tasha," Denise called. No answer. We listened. From the front came a faint, irregular tapping. Tap, 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 tap. Louis whispered, "That's not her, right?" Denise took out her phone. One bar flickered and vanished. "Tasha," she called louder. Still nothing. This was the moment that fooled us. The tapping came again, sharper now, from beyond the office door. Then a dragging sound followed, slow across tile. In my head, I saw someone inside the front office. The rear man's partner, maybe. Someone who had cut the lights, gotten to Tasha, and was waiting in the dark between us and the front exit. Denise picked up a mop handle from the prep room entrance. "Stay behind me." "No," Louis said. "Bad plan." "You have a better one." "Yeah, not walking toward horror noises. That's where the phones are. That's where the person might be." The tapping became a frantic scratching. Penny raised her head. For the first time since I'd picked her up, she made a sound other than fear. A tiny, questioning whine. That's what made me step past Denise. "Mara, wait." The scratching came again from low down, not office height, floor height. I moved toward the wired glass door, Penny heavy in my arms, my shoes squeaking on the damp line my own clothes had dripped from the laundry room. At the dark office door, I leaned close. Something pale flashed across the floor beyond the glass. Louis made a strangled sound. Then I saw the shape clearly. A cat, a white and orange tabby from quarantine, one of the ferals from last week's hoarding case, had wedged herself behind the office door and was batting at the rubber doorstop. The dragging sound was the plastic trash liner she had hooked with one claw and pulled across the tile. I laughed once, too loud and almost sick with relief. "It's Crouton," I said. Louis bent forward with both hands on his knees. "I hate that cat." Denise exhaled through her nose. How did she get out? That killed the relief. Cat quarantine was in the old rear wing. Its door latched automatically. If Crouton was in the front office, another door had been opened somewhere, or left open, or damaged. Our first attempt had already failed before we reached the office. The front hallway was dark because the breaker for that section had tripped. Denise found the panel beside the supply closet, but when she flipped the office lights back on, they flashed once and died again. Something electrical was wrong, and not in a cute old building way. The air near the panel smelled faintly warm, dusty, and metallic. "We don't force it," I said. Denise's jaw worked. "I know." Through the office window, I saw Tasha's chair tipped sideways. "Tasha," I called. A muffled voice answered from under the desk. "Here." Denise shoved the door open. Croutons shot out past our legs and disappeared toward the meet and greet rooms. Tasha Miller was curled under the front desk with the landline receiver in her hand, glasses crooked, one knee pressed to her chest. She was not bleeding. She was furious, which was almost as comforting. "Before anybody asks," she said, "I am under here because someone tried the front door." Denise crossed to her. "Are you hurt?" "No." I dropped when the lights popped. Phone line went dead right after I told dispatch the back door was compromised. "Someone tried the front door?" Lewis asked. Tasha nodded toward the lobby. Hard, twice, pulled the handle, then banged on the glass with something metal. Beyond the reception window, the public lobby sat dim and empty. Adoption posters curled on the bulletin board. A rack of pamphlets had tipped over. Outside, through the glass front doors, the parking lot looked gray and wet under morning cloud. I couldn't see anyone. "Did you see him?" Denise asked. "No. He stayed off to the side near the donation bins." "Same man." "How would I know?" Penny coughed against me again. Her body felt too hot now. I looked down at her paw. The bleeding had slowed, but her eyes were duller, her head sagging. "She needs oxygen and a paw wrap," I said. "And you need that hand cleaned," Tasha said, because even terrified, she noticed things. Denise went to the landline and pressed the hook, then the keypad. Nothing. Dead. "Cell by the front windows?" Lewis asked. Tasha shook her head. "No signal." I tried. The outage knocked the router too. "We need to get outside," Lewis said. "Flag someone." "Front door is exposed," Denise said. "Back door has a guy asking for a dog like he ordered takeout." "We use the side sally port," I said. Everyone looked at me. The sally port was the animal control vehicle entrance on the west side of the building. It connected to a fenced intake bay, then to the staff parking strip. If we could get through it, we could reach Lewis's car, my car, or at least the road. It was also closer to the old wing than to the front lobby, which meant closer to whoever had tampered with the rear door. Still, it gave us a second way out. That became our second attempt, exit through the west sally port with Penny and Tasha, leaving the dogs contained until police arrived. Denise made the decision fast. "Fine, Mara carries Penny. Lewis, you take the catch pole. Tasha, stay between us. We go through meet and greet two, then sally port. No one opens an exterior door until I say." Tasha stood, wincing when she put weight on her knee. "I can walk." "You're limping," Lewis said. I said I can walk. We left the office, moving through the dim adoption corridor past framed photos of dogs who had gone home years ago. The building felt wrong from this angle, like a place after closing even though morning had started. The main kennel noise was behind us now. The meet and greet rooms were small, painted spaces with rubber floors, chairs, treat jars, and murals volunteers had done badly, but lovingly. Meet and greet 2 had a window to the sally port. Denise reached it first and looked out. She went very still. "What?" I asked. "The gate chain is cut." Lewis muttered something in Spanish under his breath. I stepped close enough to see past her shoulder. The sally port bay was a rectangular fenced area with a concrete pad and a rolling gate that opened toward staff parking. The chain that usually looped through the gate hung in 2 pieces. Bolt cutters lay on the ground beside it, and my car door stood open. Not wide, just cracked. "So did Louis S." Tasha's voice went thin. "Tell me those were like that." "They were not," Louis said. The trap tightened around us in a way I could feel physically, like a strap across the ribs. Front door compromised. Rear door compromised. Sally port compromised. Phones down or unreliable. Dogs escalating. Penny injured. A man outside demanding her. Denise tried the Sally port interior door anyway. Locked. Good. Then she checked the push bar. "Don't," I said, "I'm checking." "Don't open it." She stopped, hand hovering. Something moved beyond my car. A crouched shape, low near the staff parking curb. Louis raised the catch pole. "Police," Tasha whispered. "No lights," Denise said. The shape jerked upward. Tasha clapped one hand over her mouth. A raccoon exploded from under my open car door, dragging a paper-fast food bag in its teeth. It bounded across the lot, fat and offended, then squeezed under the fence near the dumpster. Louis made a high, broken laugh. I'm quitting and becoming a dentist." The misdirection should have given us more relief, but the open car doors remained. The bolt cutters remained. The chain was still cut. And then Denise noticed the clipboard taped to the inside of the Sally port window. It was one of ours. Intake paperwork, a duplicate from Penny's file. A line had been circled in black marker. Found wearing rope collar near I-71/possible cruelty case. Hold pending review. Below it, someone had written, "Not your dog." The handwriting was blocky and hard, pressed so deep the marker had bled into the paper fibers. Tasha whispered, "What does that mean?" No one answered. Penny shifted in my arms and let out a weak, exhausted huff. My shirt was damp with her breath and blood. My burned palm had gone from sharp pain to a sick, throbbing numbness. My throat tasted like pennies and pool water. Denise looked at each of us. "We go back to row C," Louis stared at her. "Why?" "Because the interior kennel gates are stronger than the office doors. Because medical supplies are there. Because if he comes through any exterior point, we need dogs between us and him." "That is insane," Louis said. "It's shelter design. Kennel wing is secure. The kennel wing is where the empty cage keeps making every dog lose its mind." Denise's face hardened. "The empty cage is not our biggest problem." But even as she said it, row C went quiet again. This time, the quiet traveled toward us. One kennel after another stopped barking. Then came that low growl. A wave from the newer wing, rolling down the building like weather coming through vents. Penny lifted her head. Her ears pricked. Then she began to struggle. Weakly at first, then harder, twisting against my arms with sudden, desperate strength. "Penny, no." She kicked her injured paw against my stomach and screamed. I nearly dropped her. Louis caught her back end, and she snapped at him, teeth clicking a half-inch from his wrist. "Something set her off," he said. From the direction of row C came a metallic clank. Then another. Denise was already moving. We followed her back through the meat and greet hallway, Tasha limping behind, Louis helping me keep Penny secured. The geography of the shelter folded around us now in ugly ways. Every route led somewhere exposed. Every door meant a decision. The front office was dark and vulnerable behind us. The Sally port was cut open outside. The rear corridor held chemicals and a man at the door. Row C waited ahead, loud, without making noise. At the cross hall, Denise slowed and looked through the small observation window into row C. Her shoulders dropped. Not relaxed, defeated. "What?" I said. She opened the door. Rosie smelled like urine, fear, and hot metal from the overworked lights. Every dog was at the back of its kennel now, not the front. Even Waffles, even Juniper. They stared toward the middle of the row. C12 stood open. The empty kennel's gate was swung inward. The latch plate hung crooked, one screw missing, one bent. Inside, on the clean concrete floor, lay Noah Price's county security badge. The plastic clip was cracked. A dark smear trailed from the badge toward the drain. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Tasha said, very softly, "Noah didn't clock out normal, did he?" Denise didn't answer. Because now we had a missing night security guard, a targeted dog, compromised exits, chemical fumes, dead phones, and signs that someone had been inside the supposedly empty cage. The point of no return came as a sound from the rear corridor. Not the man's voice this time. The fire alarm. One short chirp. Then the full building alarm began to scream, red strobes flashing over Rosie, the lights cutting the dogs into jerky, panicked shapes. Over the alarm, the sprinkler pipe above the old corridor hammered once, twice. Then water burst from somewhere behind us, rushing hard across the floor. Denise shouted, "Rear wing." A sheet of water rolled under the fire door at the far end of Rosie, carrying the sharp chemical smell with it. The bleach and ammonia spill was spreading. The dogs were trapped in kennels along a floor draining toward them, and every exit we could reach had already been touched by the person outside. Denise looked at the open C12, then at Noah's badge, then at Penny. "We clear the dogs," she said. Lewis's face went slack. "All of them. We clear Rosie now." Behind us, the fire door banged once from the old corridor side. Then again. Someone was inside the building with us, and there was no waiting anymore. The fire alarm made thinking feel like trying to thread a needle in traffic. Red light strobed across row C white wall, red flash. Dog eyes, red flash. Open kennel, red flash. Noah's cracked badge on the concrete, red flash. The dark smear beside it, disappearing under a creeping film of water that smelled like a public pool, and a cleaning closet left, shut too long. For one strange second, none of us moved. Not because we didn't understand, because we understood too many things at once. The rear wing was flooding. The chemical spill was moving. The dogs were trapped in kennels built to keep animals in, not fumes out. Someone had opened C12. Someone had been close enough to put Noah Price's badge inside it. Someone was now on the other side of the fire door, at the far end of the row. The door banged again, harder. Penny convulsed in my arms and screamed. "Move," Denise shouted. That broke us. Lewis grabbed the ring of kennel keys from my belt without asking. I let him. My burned hand had swollen around the split in my palm, the skin shiny and red, and I couldn't feel my thumb right. Tasha limped to the supply cart by the prep room and started ripping clean slip leads from the hook, throwing them over her shoulder like ropes on a dock. "Where do we put them?" Lewis yelled. "Yard runs," Denise said. "The rear yard is compromised. Indoor meet and greet rooms first. Then Sally Port if we have to. That's 6 rooms for 24 dogs. Then double up the compatible ones. In this noise, do you have a better plan?" Lewis didn't answer. He went to Waffles' kennel because Waffles was first on the left and because panic hates choices. I still had Penny. She was weak now, trembling in pulses rather than constantly. Her cut paw had bled through the towel I'd wrapped around it, and her breathing made a faint clicking sound at the back of her throat. I wanted to take her to medical. I wanted oxygen. I wanted a vet. I wanted a clean room and 10 quiet minutes. We had none of those things. Denise pointed to the prep room. Mara put Penny in the crate stack. Top crate, lock it. I'm not leaving her. You can't carry her and move dogs. She's the reason he's here. She's also the reason you can't use both hands. That was true, and I hated her for saying it. Behind us, the fire door from the old corridor rattled, not banging now, working. Someone testing the handle, patient under the alarm. I carried Penny into the prep room, which sat between row C and the adoption hallway. Stainless bowls on counters, kibble bins along one wall, medication fridge in the corner, crate stack by the mop sink. The top crate was a medium wire kennel used for cats and small dogs during intake overflow. I patted it with 2 towels one-handed, set Penny inside, and clipped the latch. She lifted her head just enough to look at me. I'm coming back, I told her. It sounded like a promise. It sounded like a lie. When I stepped out, Waffles was loose on a slip lead, dragging Lewis sideways like a sled. Waffles was 70 pounds of muscle and fear, nails skidding through the contaminated water, now reaching the first drain in row. See, Lewis planted his feet, arms straining. Stop pulling, man. Please, I am begging. Waffles lunged toward C12, not away from the water, toward the open, empty cage. His growl came deep and broken. I looked inside C12 again. The drain cover sat crooked. That was new. The gray smear from before, the dark smear from Noah's badge, the dog's fixation. All of it pointed to that back corner, that drain, that stupid ordinary circle of metal in the floor. Mara, Denise yelled. Dog, Juniper's kennel had opened halfway. Tasha, trying to help despite her limp, had fumbled the latch and nearly lost her. Juniper shoved her black nose through the gap, eyes wild. I went to her, slid the lead over her head, and used my hip against the gate to keep her from bursting out. Easy, June. Easy. She wasn't hearing me. Her body shook through the nylon. Every muscle wanted to run. The old fire door slammed open. Lewis yelled, behind you. A man stepped into row C through the red strobe. He was shorter than I expected. Broad shoulders, gray hoodie dark with rain, jeans tucked into work boots, a baseball cap pulled low. His face was partly covered by a blue disposable mask, the kind we kept in boxes around the shelter. In one hand, he had a pry bar. In the other, a leash. Not a weapon meant for killing. A tool. That somehow made him worse. Denise moved between him and the row without hesitation, holding a catch pole across her body. You need to stop right there. He didn't. The dogs went insane. Every kennel exploded forward except Waffles, who stood frozen, hackles up, staring at the man. The man's eyes went past Denise, past Lewis, past me, to the prep room. Where is she? Denise's voice cut through the alarm. Police are coming. He took another step. I called animal control 3 times. Nobody did anything. Sir, stop. You people don't listen. He swung the pry bar once at the gate of C10, not hard enough to break it, hard enough to make everyone flinch. The sound cracked through the row. Lewis lost Waffles. The lead burned through his hands and slipped free. Waffles launched. For a second, I thought the dog would hit the man's throat. He didn't. He hit the pry bar arm. His jaws clamped around the hoodie sleeve and forearm underneath, and the man screamed, high and shocked, all calm gone. The pry bar clattered to the floor. Denise lunged with the catch pole, not at the man, but toward Waffles' neck to control the dog before this became a fatal bite. Louis, Louis dove for the loose lead. Water splashed up his knees. Juniper bucked in my hands, nearly taking me down. The man punched Waffles in the head with his free hand. Once, twice, Waffles held. The third hit landed near the dog's eye. Waffles yelped and released, backing into Louis, who wrapped both arms around his chest and got the lead tight. Blood ran down the man's wrist, black in the flashing light. Denise kicked the pry bar backward toward me. "Get that." I stepped on it, then bent and shoved it under the prep counter with my bad hand, biting down on a cry when pain flashed up my arm. The man staggered, cradling his arm. "You stole her," he said. Nobody answered for half a second. Then Tasha, from behind the supply cart, said, "Penny." His eyes snapped to her. That was enough. Denise hit him with the catch pole, not like in movies. No clean loop over the neck, no perfect takedown. She jabbed the padded end into his chest to drive him back. He grabbed the pole with his good hand and yanked. Denise stumbled. She was 54, strong, stubborn, and exhausted. He was bleeding and desperate. They went sideways together into C11's gate. The dog inside, a cattle dog named Mouse, snapped through the bars and caught the man's hoodie. Fabric tore. Louis shouted, "Back, back." He couldn't let go of Waffles. I couldn't let go of Juniper. Tasha couldn't move fast on her bad knee. The man ripped free and shoved Denise. She fell hard. Her shoulder hit the concrete first, then the back of her head. The sound was small, a soft, ugly knock under the alarm. For 1 second, I forgot every dog, every rule, every chemical warning. "Denise," she rolled to her side, dazed, trying to push up and failing. The man stepped over her toward the prep room. That was the moment C12 paid off. Not by moving. Explaining. With the pry bar gone and the man limping past it, I saw the underside of his right boot. Gray mud packed into the tread, the same color as the crescent smear in C12. Construction clay from the drainage project behind the shelter, where county crews had torn up the service road all month. He had been inside C12. He had used the kennel drain. The drain cover was crooked because it wasn't a drain anymore. It was a way in, not for a person his size, not through the pipe itself, for tools, for a line, for something fed up from the maintenance crawl space below the old wing. The cameras had glitched for 12 seconds because someone had cut or tripped the low voltage line in that crawl space. The alarm sensor had been unscrewed from inside. C12 was empty because it had been the access point. And Noah's badge, Noah had found him. The realization came fast and incomplete, but it was enough. He came through maintenance, I yelled. Under C12, the man turned his head. That confirmed it more than any confession. His eyes met mine, and what I saw there wasn't madness. It was grievance. Tired, curdled grievance, fed for months until it became permission. "You don't know what they did," he said. "Then tell police," I said. "She was my brother's dog." Penny coughed from the prep room. He heard it. He rushed. I let go of Juniper's lead. It was a bad choice. It was the only choice. Juniper didn't run toward the man. She ran away from C12 toward the adoption hall, slipping and scrambling. Tasha grabbed for the trailing lead and missed. I threw myself into the prep room doorway before the man reached it. He hit me with his shoulder. My back slammed into the metal counter. Bowls crashed. Pain burst through my burned hand as I grabbed the shelving upright and held on. He smelled like rain, cigarettes, wet dog, and bleach. "Move." "No." He shoved me again, harder. My hip hit the kibble bin. Something popped in my lower back, not breaking, just a deep wrench that made my legs go weak. Penny barked from the crate. One cracked bark. The man's face changed, softened. That softness scared me most. "Hey, Daisy," he said. Penny shrank to the back of the crate. Daisy, not Penny. Louis appeared behind him with Waffle's lead wrapped around one hand and a second slip lead in the other. "She doesn't want you." The man turned and swung. Louis took the hit badly, not from a fist, but from the man's elbow and forearm catching his mouth. He stumbled back into the prep table. Blood spilled over his lower lip. Waffle surged. Louis held him, barely. "Don't make me let him go," Louis said, voice thick with blood. The man reached for the crate latch. I grabbed the bottle of rescue disinfectant from the counter and sprayed him in the face. It wasn't heroic. It wasn't enough to blind him permanently. It was shelter disinfectant, not pepper spray. But it hit his eyes and mask, and he recoiled with a raw yell, hands flying up. "Now," I screamed. Tasha swung the mop bucket. She had dragged it from the hall with her bad knee and both hands on the wringer handle. It hit the man's legs, not hard enough to break anything, but enough on the slick floor. His boots went out. He fell backward into the doorway. Denise, somehow upright on one knee, jammed the catch pole over his upper body and pinned one shoulder. Louis released Waffle's lead just enough to step on it, then threw his second slip, lead around the man's wrist, and pulled it behind his back. The man fought like a trapped animal. He bucked, kicked, slipped in water, hit his head against the doorframe, and kept fighting. I dropped to the floor and crawled to the crate, dragging it backward by the wire handle. Penny slid inside, whimpering. My bad hand screamed. I pulled anyway. The fire alarm kept shrieking. Water kept coming. The chemical smell thickened. "We can't stay here," Tasha shouted. "Zip ties." Denise yelled. "Where?" "Drawer by meds." I yanked open the drawer with my good hand. Bandage scissors, pill cutters, syringes, zip ties for broken crate doors. I threw the whole pack to Louis. He caught it against his chest. The man twisted, nearly getting his knees under him. Denise lost the catch pole angle. He grabbed for the crate again with his free hand, fingers brushing the wire. Penny snapped. Her teeth closed on his index finger through the bars. He screamed. Louis cinched the zip tie around the man's wrist and the lower rung of C-Prep's rolling table. Then another. Then another. Not proper restraint. Not police work. Shelter work. Improvised, ugly, temporary. It held. The man slumped forward, breathing hard, blood and disinfectant, and rainwater dripping from his face. "She's all I had," he said. Nobody answered, because maybe that was true. Maybe he had lost a brother. Maybe he thought Penny Daisy was being stolen by a system he hated. Maybe he had called and been ignored or told something he couldn't accept. Maybe cruelty cases had paperwork and holds and court dates, while grief had none. None of that changed the open doors, the chemicals, Noah's badge, Denise on the floor, Louis bleeding from the mouth, Penny gasping in a crate. Denise sat back against the wall, one hand pressed to the back of her head. Her fingers came away red. "Mara," she said. "C12. I stared at her. He said maintenance. Noah, right, Noah. The conflict in front of us was restrained, not solved. The bigger question remained under the empty kennel. Louis wiped blood from his chin. "I'll go." "No," I said. "You can barely stand. You're holding him." "I'll hold him," Tasha said. "You have a bad knee." "I have 2 hands and a lot of anger." Denise tried to stand and nearly fell. "Everyone stop," I said. It came out louder than I meant. Everyone looked at me, even the man. The dogs in row C were barking again, but different now. Less warning, more panic. Water had reached the first kennels. We had minutes before paws stood in contaminated runoff. "Louis, you and Tasha start opening the upper yard route," I said. "Not the Sally Port. The interior adoption hall to the volunteer door. It opens to the small fenced dog walk area right." Denise blinked like she wanted to object. I kept going. "Take compatible dogs first. Waffles last. Keep them away from the rear yard. Denise, stay conscious." "I'm fine," she said. "You're bleeding from the head." I said I'm fine. That's my line. A tiny, exhausted smile flickered across Louis's bloody mouth and disappeared. "What about you?" he asked. "I'm checking C12. No, Noah might be under there." That ended it. The man at the table made a noise. Not words, a flinch. I looked at him. "Is he alive?" He stared at the floor. "Is Noah alive? He shouldn't have grabbed me." Louis took one step toward him. Tasha caught his arm. "Don't." The man's mouth worked behind the wet mask. He fell. He hit the pipe. I didn't mean. Denise closed her eyes. I ran. Not well. My back seized with every step, and my throat burned, and my hand had gone slick with blood from reopening the split. But I ran down row C to the open, empty kennel. The dogs tracked me. C12 smelled like drain water and wet concrete. I stepped inside, avoiding the smear, and crouched by the crooked drain cover. The screw had been removed, not rusted out, removed and set neatly near the wall. The cover lifted with one hard pull. Below was not a vertical drain pipe like the others, or it was once. Someone had cut through the old grate beneath and opened a gap into the maintenance trench that ran under the older kennel line. A county shortcut from an earlier renovation, maybe known to facilities, maybe forgotten by everyone except someone who had worked there once. "Noah," I shouted. The alarm swallowed my voice. I grabbed the flashlight clipped to my belt and aimed it down. A narrow concrete trench, pipes, mud, a length of rope, a smear of blood on insulation, and a boot. "Noah," a groan came back. "Then human, found him," I screamed. From the prep room, Louis yelled something I couldn't make out. Noah Price was wedged 5 feet down and maybe 8 feet along the trench toward the old rear wing, half in dirty water, one arm twisted under him. His face was pale under the flashlight beam, eyes half open, blood matted near his temple. "Don't move," I called. "Fire department is coming." "Dog," he rasped. "We have her, brother." "I know." "Not him," Noah said. I went still. "What?" "Brother's dead." He coughed. "Other guy." The alarm cut around us. Dogs screaming, water rushing. "What other guy?" Noah tried to lift his head and failed. "Owner, old owner, cruelty case," said brother, so you'd listen. My stomach dropped. Behind me from the prep room, the restrained man started laughing. Softly at first, then louder. I backed out of C12. The man had gotten one wrist free. Not all the way. Enough. He had reached the lower shelf of the rolling table and hooked 2 fingers around the handle of the bandage scissors. Louis was in row C with Juniper. Tasha was at the adoption hall door. Denise was on the floor, dazed, too far away. The man saw me see him. He stopped laughing. Then he cut the zip tie. "Louis," I screamed. Too late. He lunged for Penny's crate, dragging the rolling table with one arm still tied. Metal wheels shrieked. Denise grabbed his pant leg. He kicked free. I threw myself into him from the side. We both went down. My head hit the floor hard enough to blank the world white. When it came back, he was on top of me, one knee on my ribs, scissors in his hand, not raised for a movie stab. Low, practical, close to my face. I grabbed his wrist with my ruined hand. Pain detonated. He pressed down. The scissor tip touched my cheek. Then Waffles hit him. Louis had let go. This time, Waffles took the shoulder, not the arm, and the man rolled off me with a sound that was more air than voice. Louis was right behind, wrapping both arms around Waffles' collar to keep him from tearing. Tasha came in swinging the catch pole like a staff and knocked the scissors across the floor. Denise crawled to the crate and shoved Penny behind her with one arm. The man curled on the wet concrete, bleeding from the shoulder, forearm, and finger, breathing in short animal grunts. Sirens finally reached us. Not distant, outside, real. Blue and red light joined the fire strobes through the adoption hall windows. Police, a voice shouted from the front. Tasha started sobbing and laughing at the same time, but nobody relaxed. Not yet. Louis held Waffles with both hands, his mouth bloody, one eye already swelling. Denise sat with her back against Penny's crate, blood at her hairline. I stayed on the floor because I couldn't quite get air into my left side. The man looked at the crate. Penny stared back. She didn't bark this time. She only turned her face away from him and pressed herself against the wire nearest Denise. That was what finally broke him. Not the dog bite, not the police, not us, that little rejection. His face folded around it. The first officer came through the adoption hall with his weapon drawn, then lowered it halfway when he saw the dogs, the water, the blood, the catch pole, the crate, the man on the floor. Hands, he shouted. All of us put up what we could. Even Denise. Even me, though my right hand barely lifted. The man did not resist when they cuffed him. He just kept staring at Penny's crate, breathing through his wet mask, while the dogs in row C barked and barked at C12, where Noah lay alive under the empty kennel, waiting for firefighters to cut him out. The conflict ended in pieces, a cuff clicking shut, a firefighter kneeling beside Denise, Louis finally letting Waffles be led into a meet and greet room, Penny being carried out in her crate under a towel, her eyes open but dull. Noah's voice rising once from the trench when the rescue team reached him, and me sitting against the kennel gate of C12, unable to stand, staring at the crooked drain cover and thinking that empty had never meant safe. It had only meant we hadn't looked low enough. By the time the firefighters got Noah out from under C12, the sun had come up. Not fully, not in any warm, forgiving way. Just enough gray daylight pushing through the kennel windows to make the red alarm strobes look tired and cheap. Water stood in shallow sheets along row C, broken by islands of kibble, tufts of wet fur, and the little floating cards that had been clipped to kennel doors before the morning tore itself open. The dogs had been moved in stages. The friendly ones went first, doubled into meet, and greet rooms with towels shoved under the doors. The reactive ones were shifted into the adoption hall crates, one at a time, with two officers standing back and looking deeply unsure about every career choice that had led them to a barking municipal shelter at 7 in the morning. Waffles went last. He limped on one front leg, his right eye swelling where the man had hit him. But he still tried to turn back toward C12 until Louis got both hands on his collar and pressed his forehead briefly against the dog's neck. "Not today, man," Louis whispered. "You already did enough." Louis's mouth had split inside and out. The paramedic kept telling him to stop talking, which made Louis talk more because fear had nowhere else to go. "I'm just saying," he told her through gauze. "I think Waffles qualifies as staff now. He gets a badge, dental plan, maybe a little vest." The paramedic, a woman in her 40s with a calm face and tired eyes, looked at Denise. "Does he always do this?" Denise had a bandage wrapped around her head and one arm in a sling. Her hair had come loose from its clip, and there was dried blood at her temple, dark and stiff. She sat on the floor of the adoption lobby because she had refused the stretcher twice and lost the third argument only halfway. "He gets worse when scared," she said. Louis tried to smile, winced, and gave up. My own treatment happened near the reception desk, beside a toppled pamphlet rack and a donation jar full of pennies. An EMT cleaned my palm with saline while I stared at the front doors and tried not to pull away. The rope burn had split open in a jagged line across the base of my thumb. My cheek had a shallow puncture where the bandage scissors had pressed in before Waffles knocked the man off me. My ribs weren't broken, they told me, though breathing felt like folding paper around a knife. "You inhaled some fumes," the EMT said. "You need to be checked at the hospital." "I'm okay." Tasha, sitting in a chair with ice on her knee, said, "There it is." I looked at her. She pointed at me with the ice pack. "That stupid sentence. I am okay." "No, you're upright. That's different." Denise said, "She's right." That was how I knew Denise had a concussion. The police took the man out through the front, not the rear. I watched through the glass as they guided him across the wet parking lot with his hands cuffed behind him and a towel pressed to his bitten shoulder. He had lost the baseball cap. Without it, he looked smaller. Late 30s, maybe early 40s, thinning hair. A face that might have belonged to a tired mechanic, a shift supervisor, somebody's uncle at a cookout who stood too close to the grill and talked about carburetors. His name was later given to us as Calvin Rusk, 41, male, not Penny's owner on paper. That was the first legal detail that mattered. Penny Daisy, as he'd called her, had belonged to Calvin's former girlfriend, a woman named Erin Voss, who had left the county 2 months earlier after a domestic violence call. The cruelty hold came from animal control, finding Penny tied behind an abandoned garage off a service road near I-71, underweight, with rope burns around her neck and a healing fracture in her tail. Erin had been listed as the owner. Calvin had filed 3 lost dog reports in different jurisdictions using different names, then called the shelter twice claiming to be Erin's brother. No one had released Penny because the paperwork didn't match. That simple clerical stubbornness saved her. It also trapped all of us with the man who decided procedure was theft. Noah was alive when they lifted him through the opening in C-12. I didn't see much. The firefighters blocked the kennel gate with their bodies, and a police officer made us stay back. I saw one boot, a gloved hand, the flash of a yellow backboard. I heard Noah groan when they moved his arm, then curse in a thin, embarrassed voice. "Sorry," he said to nobody in particular. That made Denise cry, not loudly. Denise didn't do anything loudly unless it involved policy. She turned her face toward the bulletin board of adoption photos and pressed 2 fingers under her eyes. When I noticed, she snapped, "Don't." So I didn't. Noah had a concussion, 2 cracked ribs, a dislocated shoulder, and hypothermia from lying in cold runoff under the building for hours. The intruder had surprised him during the night check, according to what Noah later remembered in fragments. Calvin had come up through the maintenance trench under C12 using an old service map he found online in county bid documents. He had brought tools, a leash, bolt cutters, and cleaners to confuse scent and destroy traces. Noah caught him trying to unscrew the rear door sensor from inside the vestibule. They fought. Noah fell backward through the opened drain access, hit a pipe, and landed badly in the trench. Calvin took his badge, probably intending to use it if he had to bluff his way past someone, then dropped or planted it in C12 when things started unraveling. That was what detectives thought. Detectives use words like probably and consistent with because real life rarely gives a clean confession where every detail lines up. Calvin did not confess to everything. He admitted coming for the dog. He claimed the chemical spill was an accident. He claimed he never meant to hurt Noah. He claimed he only opened staff cars looking for a phone because his own had died. He claimed he wrote "not your dog" because he wanted us to understand. There are people who use the word understand when they mean obey. Penny survived. That was the part I needed most. She spent 3 days at the emergency vet on oxygen, fluids, pain meds, and antibiotics for the cut pad that had gotten contaminated. Her lungs were irritated, but not burned beyond repair. Her paw needed stitches. Her fear took longer, obviously. Fear does not close in neat little knots. When I visited her after the first 24 hours, she was in an oxygen kennel, wearing a soft collar, and looking smaller than any dog should look. She saw me and didn't wag. I didn't expect her to. I sat on the floor outside the glass with my bandaged hand in my lap. "Hey, sweetheart," I said. "You made it." She blinked slowly. That was enough. Franklin County Animal Care closed to the public for 9 days. The county called it Facility Remediation and Safety Review. Local news called it Shelter Break-in Linked to Cruelty Case. Online commenters called it everything else. Some people said we were heroes. Some said we were incompetent. Some wanted to adopt Waffles. A few said Calvin was only trying to get his dog back, and government shelters steal animals all the time. I learned not to read comments by day 2. The rear wing had to be professionally cleaned. The laundry room floor was stripped and resealed. The old maintenance trench was mapped, photographed, and then blocked with steel plates welded over every access point. C12's drain was capped, then filled. Facilities replaced the alarm contacts and added cameras in places we had requested cameras for years. They installed one directly over C12, though by then C12 was not a kennel anymore. Denise made it storage. Not officially at first. She just moved broken carriers into it. Then extra bowls. Then a filing cabinet no one liked. Eventually, a printed sign replaced my laminated card. Supplies only. No animal housing. No one argued. Denise came back after 2 weeks with a doctor's note, a sling, and a temper sharpened by rest. She held a staff meeting in the adoption lobby because row C still smelled faintly of sealant. "We are not relying on memory anymore," she said, tapping a new checklist packet against her palm. "No more, I thought someone checked. No more that door always sticks. No more undocumented maintenance access." Lewis raised his hand. Denise closed her eyes. What? Does Waffles get incident pay? Tasha laughed first. Then I did. Then Denise, despite herself, made a sound that was almost a laugh and almost pain. Waffles recovered too. The bite quarantine was a mess of paperwork, but because he had acted during an active attack and Calvin had been trespassing, the outcome was kinder than I'd feared. He went to a foster with a retired firefighter who sent photos of him sleeping on a sofa under a blanket printed with tiny bones. In one photo, his bad eye was half open and suspicious, like he still wasn't sure retirement suited him. Lewis printed it and taped it inside the prep room cabinet. Tasha's knee turned purple and yellow, then slowly normal. She kept a baseball bat under the front desk for a while, until Denise made her remove it and replace it with a panic button. Tasha named the panic button Gary. No one knew why. Noah visited the shelter once before transferring to a different county contract. He looked thinner, moving stiffly, one arm still braced close to his body. When he stood at the entrance to row C, every dog quieted in a way that made my arms prickle. Not because of anything impossible, because dogs remember smells, pain, stress, people. He didn't go near C12. I keep thinking I should have called it in sooner, he told me. We were standing in the adoption hall. By the mural of cartoon paw prints, some volunteer group had painted in colors no animal had ever been. His voice was low enough that the others couldn't hear. You were doing your job, I said, badly. I looked at him. He gave me a tired smile. Yeah, I know, your line, not mine. I flexed my bandaged hand. The scar had tightened by then, a pale, crooked stripe that pulled when I opened jars or clipped leads too fast. I missed it too, I said. He nodded toward the kennel wing. You found me, eventually. Eventually counts. I wanted to believe that. Most days, I almost did. Calvin took a plea months later. Breaking and entering, assault, animal cruelty-related charges tied to prior evidence, interference with public operations, and a few things the lawyers said in longer words. I didn't go to every hearing. I went to one. He sat at the defense table in a clean shirt, hair combed, shoulder healed enough that he could fold both hands in front of him. He looked at Penny's photos without changing expression. When he looked at me, I felt nothing dramatic. No chill, no wave of fear, just the memory of his knee on my ribs and the scissor tip against my cheek, ordinary and physical. Afterward, I threw up in the courthouse bathroom and went back to work. That is the part people don't put in stories about surviving things. The body keeps voting long after the danger has passed. Penny was adopted in late summer by a woman from Dublin named Rebecca Shaw, 59, female, a quiet elementary school librarian who had experience with fearful dogs and a yard with a 6-foot privacy fence. She didn't rename Penny. She said the dog deserved a name with no bad history attached, even if the shelter gave it to her by accident. On adoption day, Penny walked out low to the ground, tail tucked, but she walked. At the lobby doors, she stopped and looked back. For 1 second, her eyes found mine. Then she stepped into the sunlight. I had to go into the supply closet after that and pretend to count paper towels. Life at the shelter became normal again in the way a cracked mug becomes your favorite because you know exactly where not to press your thumb. Doors got checked twice, then logged, then checked by someone else. Cameras were watched more closely. Intake bags were sealed in clear bins. Chemical storage moved behind a locked cage. Every unexplained bark got taken seriously for about a month, then slightly less seriously, because a shelter cannot run forever at emergency speed. Dogs bark, pipes knock, cats escape. People forget to replace mop heads. Normal life is mostly deciding which alarms are real. I got better at admitting when I didn't know. Not good, better. One morning in October, I opened row C alone for the first time since it happened. The air was cool, the dogs sleepy, the lights humming awake in their usual uneven way. Seat 12 was stacked with carriers and a box of donated leashes. The new camera above it had a tiny green light. I stood there longer than I needed to. The dogs watched me. A hound in C8 yawned. Somewhere down the row, Juniper thumped her tail twice against the wall. Nothing barked at the storage kennel. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding and started breakfast. That could be the end. Most days it is. But a week after Penny's adoption, Rebecca emailed us a photo. Penny was curled on a rug in a patch of sun, one stitched paw stretched out, eyes half closed. Behind her was a neat living room, bookshelves, a blue armchair, a ceramic bowl of tennis balls. The subject line was, "She's settling in." I smiled so hard my face hurt. Then I noticed the rug. Not anything dramatic, just a little crescent-shaped gray mark near Penny's front paw, smudged into the fibers like damp clay. I told myself it was dirt from the yard. Dublin had clay soil in places. Dogs tracked things in. Rugs got marked. I didn't mention it to Rebecca. I didn't mention it to Denise. I printed the photo and taped it inside my locker, beside Waffles on his foster sofa and a new checklist for kennel closing. Every morning, I look at Penny sleeping in that square of sun. Every morning, before I clock in, I check the shelter cameras. And every time a dog barks at an empty cage, I still go look. The shadows fade for now, but the stories never end. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe to Mia Horror Stories, and join our community of horror lovers. If you're hungry for more, check out the next video. Just remember, the scariest part is often the one you don't see coming.